Am I
Comes
ready
your
for
first
beer?
kick of the night.
You-
Just getting started.
Come on, it's summer. I can make fun of anybody.
I know.
I can make fun of myself. I can make fun of anybody.
The season's never stopped, Joe.
It's damn straight.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for July 11th, 2018. If there's anybody in the room that's recording this, could you, other than WACA-TV, could you let us know? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to ask Selectman Mignani to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would.
Thank you. Be happy to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Carl, would you mind reading the vision statement? And after that, Yolanda, if you would mind reading the mission statement.
Of course.
A vision statement. The town of Ashland will be a prosperous and fiscally sound community with a full range of housing, business, cultural, educational, and recreational opportunities in a safe and attractive environment for residents and visitors.
Our mission statement, the Ashland Board of Selectmen is dedicated to promoting responsible fiscal management, advocating for sustainable development and growth, and providing excellent municipal services which will enhance the quality of life in our diverse community. The Ashland Board of Selectmen is committed to providing clear goals and objectives for town management and creating effective engagement and public participation with residents, state legislators, and other elected officials in order to achieve our mission.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone here for citizens' participation? Okay, having seen none now, we have a scheduled appearance at 7:10. Can we move ahead with that, or?
You're not obligated to hold it at 7:10. I think if the applicant is ready, you could certainly move forward if you want
Okay,
to.
that's fine with me. Is it okay with the board if we
Fine
get
with me.
started? All right,
We
so
got a
this
long night
is,
ahead of us, so.
this is the request a license agreement from the town for a proposed project at 40 Cherry Street, which is the brewery we've been getting information on. And actually, it's, is it a license agreement we're being asked to grant here, or I thought it was more of a property butter type access question, but I'll
Well,
turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's actually a couple of things. I think what we want to try to accomplish tonight is threefold. First, I think what David and Isabel would like to do is give you an overview of the project and kind of give you their vision of what they see happening and how it can help Ashland. And then also hear some concerns on or whatever your concerns and feedback is on the general concept. Second is they need to look for permission from the Board of Selectmen to take one of the parking spaces that's in the municipal lot, and that would serve as access to the brewery located at 40 Cherry Street. And then the third thing is based on the plan that has been submitted. Again, nothing has been finalized. They would need a license agreement to utilize our parking lot and our driveway, meaning Town Hall, to access their trash and have it be properly disposed of. So I think probably the first thing is to invite them up and have them, give an overview of their presentation, and then we can talk about some of the more specifics.
Great, thank you. Come up and just introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is David Butanis.
My name is Isabel Perez.
So, as Michael said, I'd like to just start with a kind of high-level overview of this project. So, what we are hoping to do is transform 4,000 square feet of commercially zoned space at 40 Cherry Street to a microbrewery and tap room that would serve high-quality craft beer and coffee. Our goal is to design an inviting tap room and beer garden where patrons can enjoy great beer right from the source. We're fortunate to live in a state with so many high-quality breweries in operation, and we feel it's time for Ashland to have a great brewery of its own. Additionally, a brewery in the middle of downtown could build on the momentum generated by projects currently in development in the area. We've all seen what Medusa Brewing Company did for the resurgence of Hudson's downtown. Now we feel we have an opportunity to create our own version of that story here in Ashland. And just to go over kind of the operation side, so we would be a 7-barrel system producing between 500 and 700 barrels a year to start, with the capacity to go up to 2,100 barrels. For reference, Medusa produced a little under 2,000 barrels last year, and Jack's Abbey produced almost 40,000. We're also going to hire a head brewer with commercial brewing experience. I have home brewing experience, but I don't think I need to unleash my home brew on Ashland yet. This would also be 100% on-premise sales, including both draft beer and cans to go. So our model has no plans for distribution in the future. We want to be very local and be able to serve right from the source. So no 18-wheelers driving up and down Cherry Street for pickups and deliveries. We plan to serve light snacks and pastries. Also have food trucks available, and bring your own food for more substantial fare. The hours of operation would be Tuesdays through Sundays, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and the possibility of opening on Mondays for private events to start. And we anticipate, again, light truck deliveries, box truck deliveries, probably 2 to 3 times a week.
Through our own driveway.
Correct, through our own driveway, yes, not through the town hall parking lot. So I just want to highlight what we feel are the main benefits of this project. So we feel like this would add a very vibrant third place to the tapestry of downtown Ashland. Steve, I know you forwarded an article about third places. I appreciate that. And just to explain it again, the concept is a third place refers to places where people spend time outside their first place, which is home, and their second place, which is work. So parks, libraries, social clubs, cafes, restaurants are all third places. And Ashland already has several really successful, vibrant third places. Ashland Farmers Market, the Corner Spot, and Stones. But we think there's a big gap in the roster of third places, which is a brewery tap room. And we feel like this could fill in that gap and, you know, help Ashland keep pace with the growing number of towns across the Commonwealth that are bringing breweries online. Some even now have a couple. So we really want Ashland to keep pace. We also see this as contributing to the revitalization of downtown. So tap rooms create a lot of buzz and excitement that nearby businesses can benefit from. And we're confident this project would increase foot traffic downtown and bring in additional investment to the district. And finally, this project would create jobs, add to the commercial tax base of the town. And just in conclusion, Isabel, myself, and our son Julian, we're thrilled to become Ashland residents ourselves last summer. We've gotten to know the community very well over the years. Isabel's sister Julia, standing right back there, president of Metro West's famous Ashland Farmers Market, and her husband Corey have lived here with their 2 children for 13 years, and we've been visiting off and on, and again, we were just very excited to have the opportunity to live here ourselves. And you know, we couldn't imagine a better place to fulfill our lifelong dream of owning our own business. And we plan on being a part of this community for many years to come. We're not planning on going anywhere. And also, the last thing I'd like to point out is we are actually going to be living behind this brewery. If you've seen the plans, you'll notice there's a single family home behind the brewery, and that will be our primary residence. So I don't know if you can make an argument for being more invested in a project than living within a stone's throw of it. Thank
Is
you.
that the house on Cherry Street? Or
It is.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so actually, the building is behind, the brewery's gonna
Yeah,
be behind.
that's
it.
how I think of it, yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Okay, very good.
You'll
Well,
see it.
so, anything else in your presentation before we get into questions and discussion?
PowerPoint that we were?
Yeah, did you want to put up the?
So I'm sorry, we didn't know
It
that
is
you
on-
guys were
We do
gonna need
have-
some
we do
slides,
have
okay?
your PDFs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Those are the things that you sent to the board,
Mhm.
the same, okay. Yeah, that's good, it's helpful for the people watching, the folks watching.
Got
to
you.
be able to see it.
Okay.
All right, so this one is actually slide 3, which would be the outside. Let's see.
So you're gonna use the existing building.
Right, so,
much.
good point. So this is not going to drastically alter the existing building and the existing structure. Obviously, as you know, we want to create a visible, prominent front entrance. Again, these are just conceptual plans, nothing set in stone, but that is, you know, our architect's first stab at that. But
And this
no-
would be the area right here where we're looking for that access. So it would be, you know, a parking
Right.
space right in front of this area.
that would be where the curb cut would be required.
A quick question with respect to that. In walking around your building a little while ago, I noticed that you have a back entryway, that's gonna be used as a fire access, a fire exit, only?
Yes.
Cause that curb cut's already there for handicap, accessibility. So I was wondering if that's something that you wanna utilize there and then maybe do another, fire exit at another locale without, you know, interrupting the parking situation. Cause parking's at a premium in the back area there, as you already.
Sure. Yeah, so I think, you know, we feel that having a centrally located
Mhm.
front entrance is really, you know, critical to the success
Okay.
of the business, and having good visibility, having good flow into the space, not, you know, kind of coming around it at an angle. So, you
We
know.
definitely considered it though, and you know,
Okay.
we are gonna use that as the fire exit, and then we were also considering the entrance and exit of our customers. We're trying to keep that as close to our property, and you know, hopefully not cause that much more in regards to noise facing the Ashland house, which we do know is another concern.
And your operation hours are Tuesday through Sunday, 9 to 11, and Mondays, they're gonna be shut down, but you may use them for,
Special events.
special events?
Yeah.
You may get some pushback on Sundays, 9 to 11.
Okay.
Starting time is kinda early, you get church going on. You got a church across the street, which also utilizes the parking over there. I don't wanna see the good reverend get a little upset over that, so just
Maybe you
being,
could go have
just
a
being,
beer.
oh, you could have a beer too, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. You know, if he's just a closet drinker, I don't know what he is. I would just be, you may
Aware of
wanna,
that,
you may wanna
absolutely.
rethink that, you know, maybe starting at 1 or noon time. Because by that time, all the churches are done.
Gotcha.
Just to be a good neighbor, that's all.
Sure.
Just think about it.
I
Absolutely.
think Carl had a question.
Yeah, well, anyway, welcome to Ashland.
Mm.
It,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're always happy when people have good things to say about the town. My question, I guess to me it's an obvious one, but maybe I'm missing something here, is why aren't you using the front entrance to the building from Cherry Street? It seemed, when I first saw it, it seemed odd that the entrance was off of the municipal parking lot instead of off the front of the building.
Sure, so I think the reason for that is it's facing a side street, right? So as people are coming into town and, you know, patronizing downtown businesses, we think it would be helpful to have something prominent that could be easily visible from Main Street, that people would understand, you know, this is the entrance to the brewery. It's also running, up the drive, what is now the driveway to the side of the home. So we want to keep, you know, the single-family home space and then the brewery space separate as much as we can as far as customers. You know, for deliveries, doesn't bother us if a delivery truck is going up the driveway, but to have people kind of, you know, filing in and out that way, we could see as being potentially problematic. So I think, you know, those are the main reasons. It just, obviously, as it stands right now, the structure, you know, is suited for that, but as we transform it into, you know, a flourishing business from kind of a storage eyesore, you know, we really want to take advantage of the space that we can create.
Yeah, go
Just a
ahead.
couple other quick questions. The area that you're referring to is the garden, and that's the grassy area behind the garage that I'm looking at?
It is.
Yep.
Okay. And that'll be outside seating? I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, if you look at the slides, it would be in your lower right corner,
Mhm.
where we have proposed
Right.
outdoor seating.
And that's actually almost directly behind or adjacent to 119 Main Street where you have the elderly. So if the people are gonna be out there by 11 o'clock, I don't know how much noise is gonna be generated, but you may wanna think about that.
Absolutely. So that's something we're definitely aware of and cognizant of, and you know, we want to be good neighbors.
I understand, and let me
Yeah.
tell you something, I'm all for this idea, I think it's great. I just have concerns, I wanna see you do well, but at the same token, when you do well, it creates other things, and we have to think about everybody, not just not that one little thing with you guys, but it's
Sure.
everybody around the neighborhood, and that's fine.
Sure.
The other thing that I brought up earlier tonight, before we started the meeting, was that you have Corner Spot, and every now and then they do one-day liquor licenses, which turn out to be one-year liquor licenses, as far as I'm concerned. How is that gonna affect your business? Where you're doing, you know, you got a beer thing, you're trying to establish that, and now these people are coming in and serving other things.
Interesting point.
That, I just have a concern that it may be opposite, you know?
Right.
It could be ideal for you guys, maybe we'll see a number of these one-day liquor licenses not happening because they'll come over to you. I'm hoping that would happen.
Well, that's the hope, right?
So,
Is that we've seen from these one-day licenses a lot of interest and excitement in having craft beer in Ashland.
Right.
Right? Good quality product.
Mhm.
And that is what we hope to be able to create year-round. So that it's not just a pop-up, you know, brewery coming in from another town. This is Ashland's own brewery that every Ashland resident can be proud of to
Right.
talk to the, you know, neighbors in Framingham and,
Mhm.
you know, Milford and Hudson that have other breweries, and they can say, hey, come over and check ours out.
Which is the reason why I brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanna make sure that everybody is aware that that's what that area is used for. It wasn't the original intent for that, it was supposed to be family events and so on and so forth, and it's turned it into, well, whatever, it's turned it into what it is. But I think it's a great idea, I love what you're doing, and again, I just have some parking concerns and the noise that could be created to the folks that are over there, you know, at 119 Main. I know somebody has mentioned something, that you may go door to door over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we plan on engaging our neighbors as much as possible. And we
I-
also plan on hopefully attracting our neighbors
Yep.
to our brewery through different events, through different
I know several
promotions.
people that'll be more than happy to walk over. To be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Well, we were thinking maybe a nice kickoff, you know, for the Ashland House, a bingo.
Some free coffee on
Afternoon.
Tuesdays.
I know some great bingo MCs out
There
there.
you go.
Don't put free there, you'll be in trouble. The Berkshire Group owns that property, so they'd be the ones that you may wanna talk to, especially if it comes to parking issues, cause they're the ones that, you know, maintain it, and they're out in New Hampshire, so you may wanna
Okay.
give
Great,
them a
thank you.
contact, yeah.
Steve, did you have a?
Yeah,
Or
so
East
speak-
Point? It's East Point, I'm sorry, it was East Point, that's right.
So speak to the use during the day, because you're talking about coffee as well
Yeah.
as, so
So
kind of talk
we're-
about that concept.
We're also hoping to fill that gap in our downtown area. We want this to be a welcoming space where people can come and have a cup of coffee, maybe do, you know, some working from home, working, and also it'd be a space where Ashland may have, I don't know, a mom's group, or even if there was a town hall or meeting of some sorts that, you know, you wanted just a different venue for. So we thought, you know, what were the benefits? You know, we knew we wanted a brewery, but we also knew that we did want this kind of inviting space, exactly what the Corner Spot provides, and just a space where people can come, they can socialize, they can bring their kids, they can have meetings, whatever it is, but just kind of fill that during the day gap.
Sounds good. There is a mom's group too in town.
Yolanda?
Mom's Club,
Yeah.
so, yeah, they're very vibrant and active, so,
Absolutely.
Nice.
my neighbor's involved, so they're good.
Yep. So welcome to Ashland. I think it's been interesting, the feedback and the support we've been getting. Our email, it goes up and down, and the email relating to this. So people are excited, and they think it's something that is positive for Ashland. So just a couple of things. So are you expecting that the town hall parking lot is gonna be your primary parking lot for your business? Because that's where the entrance is gonna be?
Yes, so during the hours, our peak hours, right, which is gonna be Friday, Saturday, during the day, Sunday into evening Sunday, we've seen that the lot is
Is empty, pretty empty.
right? And
Okay.
so that's why we feel that this could be a workable, shared use situation. And, the times that, on a Wednesday night where there may be business here at Town Hall, a meeting such as this one, our hope is that our patrons would be able to utilize on-street parking, other municipal lots. We have been talking to the town about possibly developing the lot on Tilton and Cherry. So, we see that there are some options. Obviously, I understand completely why parking would be a concern, but we think there are some workarounds.
And it's also about educating our customers, and it's about, making sure that it's very clear on our website and maybe even a parking app, but something that they would know where the other options exist. Again, we pride ourselves on trying to be good neighbors, and we don't want it to be a congestion issue and then it turn into some unnecessary stress.
Okay, and then am I reading it right that you're looking to actually add on to the building, or is that just gonna be this area here? Is that just
That's
open
just
to the
it's-
grass? Okay.
Yeah, it's just it'll be completely enclosed by a 7 to
We're thinking
8
like
foot.
7 to 8 foot fence, enough that, it's gonna be properly screened, but we're gonna turn that into a really nice, outdoor patio area.
Okay. Good.
Sounds good to me.
It sounds like it's a great plan. I think your thoughts about what it could do for Ashland has been very positive, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carl?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to reiterate what everyone else is saying, and I'm happy to hear that you're thinking of reaching out to the people at Ashland House, because we deal a lot with this board of complaints of dumpster pickup and things like that. So the things that really, that stand out to me are the positioning of the dumpster when the dumpster is emptied, and just the general ambient noise and how that impacts Ashland House. So if you can work that out in advance, that's really a good start.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, thoughts?
So the start date is 2/20? Is that when
I
you're
was
looking
gonna ask
to
that.
have everything done at 2/20?
2020.
2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, 2020. Oh.
okay.
Oh, so we've got a little time involved here.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
but not so much.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, ideally, kind of winter into early spring
Yep.
2020, I think that would be great. If we
But
can- if
our
we can make
hope
that
is
work.
to definitely, within the
Yeah.
next couple of weeks is when we actually have to.
You have a planning board meeting too on the
We
26th.
do, yes, on the 26th.
And this, just want to reiterate, this is the place where they're going to live. So they actually have kind of scheduled things. I mean, when they're scheduled to close, I think, in August, and, well,
Okay.
again.
So you're
At the
gonna
end
be,
of this month,
you're gonna be
yes.
living there to manage the construction for the
Exactly,
space.
Yep.
exactly.
They'll be foreseeing it all themselves, that's a good
So
thing.
again, Michael, reiterate the potential actions tonight are to approve a curb cut.
Not a curb cut, but the taking of that one parking space to make it
Okay.
compliant.
So the taking of, and
Just
then,
one.
and then relative to the dumpster, right, is that to be determined?
So my suggestion would be to have a couple of members of the Board of Selectmen go to maybe you could appoint an official subcommittee that would go to the planning board meeting on the 26th.
Yep.
And talk about that, because I have some concerns with the dumpster too, and David and Isabel know that, and they have concerns as well. I think that's one of the reasons that makes them good partners in this. But I think some things need to be worked out, but I think that should probably happen jointly. And if you want to empower that subcommittee to make a decision at that point, then they can basically kill two birds with one
Right,
stone.
okay.
I just had some questions as well. So, and I don't know, thinking about this, so is it unusual to have an establishment whose main entrance is off a municipal parking lot? I mean, where have we seen that model? So I guess what I'm getting at is, again, we want to be welcoming and encouraging a business, but this is where the town hall parking lot is going to be their main parking lot and their main entrance, which I think is a little unusual. So one of the things I think we ought to think about is what is the town's we want to make sure we're protecting the public interest here and that the town gets value for what it's really investing or contributing to this. So I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Well, and that's a good point, and I think that's why a really important part of this whole discussion is the development of that lot on Tilton and Cherry into additional public parking. So the addition of 20 to 25 spaces that can be used by the public for downtown Ashland, not necessarily just the 40 Cherry Street establishment, is important. To get to your point of where have we seen, you know, this kind of configuration, and nothing comes, you know, right off the top of my head, but I will say that like an establishment like Erica's is fed primarily through that municipal lot. The only difference is that you have a street that separates the municipal lot from the restaurant, and
Okay.
it's also used by the Holliston Town Hall. That's
Holliston Town
actually-
Hall is right next to the church. The church uses their parking lot all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
As is the Federated Church with our parking lot.
Right.
So,
And Hopkinton Town Hall as well is fed from the rear,
That's
their
true.
parking lot, and that feeds the businesses
You
from
have
the rear
bills
as
within
well,
the
so.
bank and-
yeah,
Apparently I don't get
yeah.
out enough.
So,
Yeah,
it's
but I
not-
think
That's
that-
okay, we do.
I think that this is uniquely different than all of those examples.
it is.
That a rear entrance is different than a front entrance, and a church is different than a bar, you know, I mean.
Not necessarily.
So I think that's a valid concern. It's what I was getting at in my first comment, that it just seemed odd that the entrance was where it was instead of in the front of the building. And I understand their explanation, but it still feels a little
Awkward,
unique
yeah.
to me.
And Carl, you and I have talked about this, you know, some of our specific concerns with that entrance, and maybe, you know, the best thing to do is go ahead and grant the approval tonight contingent upon them coming back with a plan for that entrance that is agreeable to you all in terms of like the entrance and the landscaping. We want to make sure there's no neon sign, you know, that says "Eat at Joe's." But and I'm being kind of funny about that, but I think there are some particular things that are going to make it, I guess, diminish some of the awkwardness that could be exhibited.
Yeah, and this still has to be fleshed out at the planning board through the
Correct.
design review and things like that. So we're really kind of in territory that's really not
That's true.
Purview.
our purview, other than to raise the issues and to raise them in advance to you, that they may be raised somewhere else, that where people have more approval authority than we do here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
No, I'm telling you, I had some concerns when I first heard this idea, and you know, I think very similar ones. And then I talked to David and Isabel, and you know, I think what really struck me is that their commitment to the community and their commitment to the neighborhood and their neighbors. And I think that's very important to us as a town. I think it's very important to you as a board. We lament, and rightfully so, a lot of times people who just come into town to make a living and their best view of Ashland is in their rearview mirror when they leave at night. And David and Isabel are not like that at all. I think if there are complaints from the neighborhood, the people that will take it most to heart are probably not on this board, but it will probably be them. That being said, we will probably be the ones getting the complaints. But I've been impressed. So.
Thank you.
Anybody puts that investment into the community, living here, raising their family, that's a commitment. Just coming and living here is a commitment. Never mind doing your own business. That
Yeah,
All right.
they don't want to make a profit. They want to make a living. I think
Well,
that's-
I would hope they want to make a profit so they can continue doing business,
Right.
because otherwise there's a concern.
Right.
So what's before us now in terms of,
So my recommendation to the board would be to take a vote to approve the use of that parking space for the purposes identified in the plan, contingent upon David and Isabel coming back with, after talking with the planning board, with a entrance plan that aesthetically is okay for you. And then also, if you, you know, if you want to go ahead and approve just a general license agreement, or just basically give them the go-ahead to say that, yes, you can utilize the municipal space, and then we go to the planning board and figure out exactly what that means and flesh that out, and then we can put together a license agreement. I think that would be a good next step too. So you'd vote to give them permission.
So when
and
you
work on
say
license
a
agreement.
general license agreement, so that would be an agreement that would cover the fact that they're serving food, that they're brewing alcohol, that they're serving, that they're,
No, it's a license just to use our
oh,
facilities.
the license for the facility,
So,
okay.
yeah, like our parking lot and our driveway, so they
I
can
see.
access
I see, okay.
their.
That brings up the question of the liquor license. Is that an issue, or what do we?
Well, when they're ready, they will need to come.
They'll have to
And
come
there will be
forward, yeah.
one,
Yeah.
there's presumably some available.
And potentially an entertainment, I
I
mean,
think we might
license
want
or.
to check, that might fall under a different
Oh,
legislation.
interesting.
Yeah, so we get what's called a farmer's brewer's license.
Oh, so it's,
From the state.
it's different
So
than-
it's treated differently
Oh.
than
Oh,
a
interesting.
full liquor
Okay.
license.
Yeah, it's not a pouring license.
all right.
So,
So any other thoughts on?
Any
consideration?
food down the road, like meals and stuff, like John Howard just finally, ended up doing, or anything like that?
I mean,
Right.
who knows?
Right, so
But not in our
we want to
initial-
keep
Not-
it,
not in the
we
near
want to
future.
keep it simple in
Yep.
the beginning to make sure we've got a handle on our core business.
Mhm.
Certainly, we would keep that door open, and if at some point down the road, it seems like that makes sense
Yep,
for the business and for the space, we would be open to it.
okay.
one of the ideas they've brought up, actually, I think, is maybe to Sheila or somebody, is to actually partner with some of the other local businesses in town, like Julie's Breads or OMG Bagels, to provide food
for the
for
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. So for our coffee program and pastries, there are already some operating businesses in town that it's kind of a no-brainer to team up with them.
Set up a schedule with them.
Yeah, and even lunch and dinner options, we could always work with, Nick's Pizza or Stone's or something, if they would be open to kind of a to-go, meal for four to-go, like, special. But yes, we'd love
So-
to encourage that as well.
So Michael, you talked about developing the other municipal lot. That they would help with that? Is that how you brought that up?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
help pay for it.
So
Yeah.
that'll be part of the discussions when we,
That would be part of the conditions, I think, with the site plan.
Okay, well, that seems like a good deal.
okay. Now, where would your employees park?
They would hopefully be able to utilize that lot.
Okay. So
mean-
you'll be taking up other spaces during that time frame. I was thinking of a nice big driveway over there, you probably could put that in the back over there.
Yeah.
We will fit them where
Yeah,
we can,
they can
by
park in
all
our
means.
driveway if they
Yeah,
need
you know
to.
what I'm saying.
By
Okay.
all means.
All right, so Michael brought up the question about a subcommittee. Is there interest in that? Or we need to do that, or what?
Subcommittee?
You don't, you could go ahead and give them an indication that you're okay with the general concept of them,
I mean, I
giving
think-
them a license agreement with
All
the
right.
idea that you need to.
I think one or two of us can go to the planning board meeting and speak to it if
If
need be.
necessary.
But a subcommittee, I think, is a little
Much,
cumbersome, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're any other further discussion or thoughts here? So I think we're looking, is there anybody in the audience who has an issue with this that may want to talk to us about it, or?
Only if you're against it, because I think we've gotten a lot of support for.
Yeah, I agree.
There's
Anybody-
residents in the area.
Anybody have any particular concerns that are here to talk to us about this, the brewery? Okay, so, we needed, a general motion just to, grant a license to use the town property subject to approval by the planning board?
So your first vote would be to give them permission to utilize that one parking space for their access.
So moved.
Okay, is that, all right, do I have a second for that? All in favor?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and
then
anything else?
Your second, I think it would be helpful for them if you said took a vote that said you're in general agreement of
Kind of sense
a
of the board?
license agreement, contingent upon some specifics, and then that could be fleshed out in the actual license agreement.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion
Michael,
carries.
where were you putting in this contingency of coming back with a landscaping plan? Was that in the first motion?
That should be in the first motion.
Well, maybe we
So if
should,
you could add that, Susan, contingent on approval of the entrance plan. Review of-
Aesthetically.
Aesthetically.
Mhm.
The planning board meeting is
26th, July
26th, okay.
26th.
All right. So I think well, thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Appreciate
Good
it.
luck.
Really appreciate it,
Good luck
thank
and
you.
welcome to Ashland.
Wonderful, thank you.
The next scheduled appearance is the one-day license for the Culture Fest at the Corner Spot requested by Gianluca Caroli, DBA Wine Empire. The event will take place on July 21st from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I have here, this would be a request to approve a one-day license for Wine Empire for the Culture Fest at the Corner Spot on July 21st, Saturday from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. So, discussion, thoughts on that?
Do we want to hear from the applicant?
Oh, he's here,
Yes,
okay.
he's here.
Go ahead,
I figure I'll stop by.
sure.
Selectmen and Board, Mr. Chair. I believe you do have the plan for, the event, the Culture Fest.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a fairly small, spot in this area. It's gonna be about mostly performances, food, dresses, and so forth. And we just simply plan on serving iced coffee, a few pastries, very likely cannolis, and probably just a beer and a wine, one or two. Something on a little bit more on a minor scale compared to the prior events that we have done and we previously been approved for, such as the Wine and Beer Fest coming up on August 4th. So,
Because the request on the Culture Fest that we have in front of us mentions beer and wine from many regions depending upon the selectmen's review. But you do have iced coffee next to that, so.
Yeah.
My general question to you, sir, is, and I know that this is a cultural fest, bringing in different diversities, which is great. I think it's a great idea. It's a family cultural day, mixed with music, dance, and art and food, which I think is wonderful. I guess my question is, why does there have to be beer and wine? If it's a family event and it's gonna be a cultural event, why does there have to be beer and wine there? And I say this with all sincerity. I've been on the Ashland Day Committee for 33 years. It's a town pride event. It's a family event. In the 33 years, we've never had alcohol, beer or wine present, and everybody seems to have a good time. Why is it necessary? I guess, if somebody can answer that, and then I'll shut my mouth.
I can give you my opinion, and it's just my opinion. Wine, like food, like everything else, comes from more than just one country. It's a globalized, product.
Mhm.
You can actually represent at least the 25 country off the top of my head, because it depends where you are, in the world. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but as we might say, why, we can also say, why not?
That's a valid argument. And again, that still doesn't answer my question, is why does it have to be there? That's only, I just have, that's how I feel. I mean, I think it's a great event, I'm gonna vote for it, but is it necessary? It's probably not necessary, but if people want it, I guess that's the nature of the animal, I guess. If you're having kids playing around and doing this and that and everything else, and mummies and daddies are having, a few drinks under their belts, who's actually really watching the kids? But the other thing is, you had a line in yellow drawn, and it says the roped off area was the beer consumption only inside this area. And it's a yellow line, and it's going from halfway to the shaded area, all the way down to the truck food area. That's not one small area, that is almost the entire corner spot. That area has to be minimized.
I would say I didn't draw myself this plan, but I hear the concern, and what we can perhaps do is just to cut it in half.
Yeah, we
Or
had
just
something
to-
similar with someone else.
I was gonna
Right.
say, unless
Yeah.
there is some other prior, events that was done this way.
We had something I think worked well that.
The last time we approved, we did it
To the path.
just the portion of it, not the entire
Right.
corner spot. So it was just a section of it. What we eliminated, where we didn't have, where we had it roped off, eliminated where all the kids typically play, where the game section is, so
Right.
I think that's what Joe was getting at.
And we can make
just-
adjustments
Yeah.
to that.
And it seemed to
absolutely.
work, because I,
Yep.
you know, I enjoy beer, so I go down, when
Yeah.
there's beer at the corner spot, I do go
And I
down.
don't
And-
think
and-
That's
it
probably-
impacted them negatively in
No,
regards to that
I don't
sentence.
think so.
In the
They're here,
specific.
so we can ask if necessary.
Right, and the specific reason, why we also, not to go back to Mr. Magnani's, point, why we have wine, because we can represent maybe a couple other countries, in addition to, for example, Colombia, you're thinking about, coffee, dessert, you're thinking about Italy or Spain or French, pastries and so forth. So, again, it's gonna be like, much more diminished in terms of, both, volume and number of products.
And are you one of the sponsors of the Cultural Fest?
Yes.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have a problem with putting that line down by the path area, drawing it off there?
Whatever makes
just
everybody
minimize- well,
happy, I'm
that-
happy to do.
I think that's what we did the last time.
That's what we did last
Yeah,
time.
okay.
So we just need to direct
That's all.
Beth Reynolds to coordinate off appropriately, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring some
I'm-
Italian wines with you.
Ready for a motion?
Yolanda, sure, go ahead.
I move that we approve the request for a one-day liquor license for Wine Empire for the new Cultural Fest at the Corner Spot on Saturday, July 28th, from 3 to 8 p.m.
Do I have a second for that?
Excuse me a second, before we vote.
Oh,
The
okay.
28th or the 21st?
I'm sorry, the 21st. Did I say the
21st, yeah.
28th? On July 21st,
Yeah, no, these are 25.
from 3 to 8. I apologize.
And
And no rain
Need a
days, so
second, okay.
you're gonna have it whether it rains or not?
I agree. I'm going
There
to.
you go.
I'm gonna be there with my umbrella.
so,
I think second.
did
Did we get a second?
Did
Yeah,
Joe
we
second?
did. We seconded.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded if we're ready to
No,
vote.
good.
Did you have any, okay. All those in favor of granting the one-day license for Wine Empire on Saturday, July 21st, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, congratulations.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. Okay, so the next, we have 3 one-day license for Fireflies Barbecue at the Corner Spot, and, oh,
Denied.
he is here, okay.
Yes.
And did we get the backup for that? I understand there was
It's in
some
the package.
issue
Yeah,
with
it's in the new packet.
the new packet, okay. So have folks had a chance to look at that, or?
And everything was in order, right, Sue?
That is correct.
I didn't see them, I thought there was just one copy of it, but, did you guys have a copy of
No, I
it?
don't.
I thought there was just one.
I have it here if
Yeah.
anybody wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably just pass it around, at least let somebody take a look at it.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, do you wanna just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the event?
Sure. Steve Eulis, 10 Coburn Drive, Ashland, owner of Fireflies Barbecue. Last year, when the Corner Spot opened, we had brought our food truck down there for a week. And we wanted to do it again. Fortunately, we're very busy and our availability is limited. I think it's a great event. We're going to bring our food truck down there on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday from 11 to 8 on Saturday and Sunday, and 11 to 7 on Monday, serving our world-famous championship best barbecue on the planet here in Ashland. And we want to serve some refreshing non-alcoholic beverages and a couple of beers and some wine in whatever area you gentlemen and ladies would like it to be.
Okay.
So I take it was a success for you last year.
It was great.
You had some
It
bad
was-
weather, but
Sunday,
We did. We had some
Monday.
terrible weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, but everyone came out and
They still
visited,
came.
and we had a great time. And I live in this town, and I want to do whatever we can. So that's why we're
you're
here.
welcome.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the story.
So that's this weekend, right?
It's this weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's cool.
we also have, just so everyone understands, we are one of the largest barbecue caterers in New England. We have 14 trucks, and we also have a catering liquor license, right? So we can go anywhere in the Commonwealth, which we serve alcohol all of the time. So to put your mind at ease, the people that will be here serving alcohol will be tip certified, and I'm going to be there also. So.
So Steve, did
take
you
it
say you were
easy.
gonna be here for a week again, but?
No, we're going to be here
Just 3 days?
Saturday, Sunday, and
Okay,
Monday.
just those 3
yes.
days, okay. All right, any further discussion or questions? So this is
Saw the
starting.
operation the
this-
last time I was here, and it was very successful, and it was very good.
Okay, so, I have a motion to approve the request for 3 one-day license for Fireflies Barbecue at the Corner Spot on Saturday, July 14th, 2018, Sunday, July 15th, 2018, and Monday, July 16th, from 11 to 8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
5-0.
Look forward to
All right,
seeing you all.
thanks.
I'm sure we'll see you at some point.
See you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, so, so this one is a Zealous Beer Company. Is there someone here from, okay. So this is a number of, this is 14 one-day license for Zealous Beer Company at the Corner Spot.
Not happy with this.
I'm not gonna read all the dates, but, we'll go through when we do the motion. But, so these are really dates throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, a Monday through Friday in August, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday 2 to 10, Sunday 1 to 9 p.m.
I have 1 to 7, Sunday, August 26th.
Well,
Did they change
I was just
okay.
picking out times to kind of give people an idea of what is being asked here. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your requests?
Yeah, we're requesting 14 consecutive one-day licenses
Consecutive, yes, 2 weeks.
for the corner spot to serve Zealous beer. We did this event in April over the marathon weekend, although the marathon weekend was rather rainy. The other days were very successful. We enjoyed our time here, and I think the people of Ashland enjoyed us being here. So we'd like to do it again across the what is it? The bank holiday. That's the English term. Sorry.
Labor Day.
Labor Day. That's the
Labor
word.
Day,
That's the
okay.
words I meant.
So, yeah.
That's your second weekend.
So
is
it's from
Labor Day.
August 24th through September
6th.
Which would make us, I believe you're allowed 30 one-day licenses in one town, so that would take us up to 28. So we won't be back again later in the year, I guess.
So you think it'll work, so you're gonna be there every day for 2 weeks, basically?
Weather permitting, and if, last time we did it, Monday and Tuesday were kind of soft. I can't speak to this time. I mean, I was just out there now, and it's quite busy. The weather's much better than it is in April, when it's quite cold.
Huh.
So I suspect so. One other comment, you were talking about the drawing earlier for
Yeah.
the other license. Beth redrew it, and we have the same same
I
drawing.
remember, it was your,
Yeah,
And
so
it
I think we're gonna ask you to do it the same way you did it last time.
I'm
And I
absolutely
think
fine with
it
that.
worked, and
The basis, she's not here, so I'll just talk to
Right.
what she said to me was that it was just because she didn't want the kids to be like clotheslining, she didn't use the word, but like, because the kids would go from the kids area across. I actually never saw this happening, quite honestly, but that was the point she made to me. So.
I think what you did last time worked in regards to where, the line and stuff like that, so I think,
It's
Why
more
change it?
controllable that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
thoughts, questions on this? My only kind of thinking is that this is really kind of expanding, the role of the Corner Spot and having beer served every night
I have a
for
question
2
for him.
weeks,
Yeah.
so.
So I have a question. So you came and you were at the marathon 2 years ago.
Yep.
You were at the Corner Spot in April. You're doing this again.
Mm.
One of the reasons and designs of the Corner Spot was to create businesses, pop-up businesses that would then potentially come into downtown or into Ashland on a permanent basis.
Yep.
Is that something you're still looking at? Is bringing Zealous to Ashland in some kind of either bar or bringing your brewing here or?
I'll be honest with you. We are looking for a site quite strongly. As far as I am aware, there's 3 available sites in Ashland. None of them quite work for our needs. Like,
Okay.
like microbreweries, nanobreweries, brew pubs, whatever you want to call them. they all have certain requirements, and most of the spaces should work best are like flex warehouses spaces. So you need a mixture of a warehouse, high ceilings basically.
Right.
So you can put cold storage in there and some brewing equipment. And then you also need generally speaking, you need some offices or something which have lower spacing. And I've looked very hard, and the market for commercial real estate in the general Boston area right now is as tight as anyone has seen it. The problem is the economy is so strong that it's hard. Just big.
But you have been looking and talking to Beth.
I've been talking to Beth. Actually, my real estate broker is a resident of Ashland. Yes,
Okay.
a guy called John Pezzoni. He lives in Ashland himself.
Carl, did you have a question?
I just think, and this isn't for the applicant, it's for the board. And the reason that I raise it is because it's been raised to me by other people that, and Yolanda spoke to this a little bit, that that we seem to be drifting a little bit away from the original intent of the corner spot. And it seems like more and more, someone said to me that their child asked them, when did the corner spot become a beer garden? And so I think that that's something that we have to be aware of. What do we want the corner spot to be? And I think that it being a beer garden sometimes is fine, but it's just something that I think that we need to be aware of. It's just, when I was speaking with the previous applicants about things that jump out at me when I first get the agenda, the entrance to that building. For instance, what jumped out at me at this agenda is that the first 2 pages are one-day liquor licenses, and which is fine, except where do we draw the line on this stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we have to decide as a board, that you certainly don't have to decide.
And just for information, the next application is another 14 one-day license for Exhibit A at the corner spot, from starting September 21st going through
To October.
October.
Yeah. So we're kind of becoming the one-day liquor license capital of the world, and I think that maybe we should be aware of that.
And I would say what we should then do is, review what happened this season. And I think, what Beth is doing, sort of what we've asked her to do, is bring businesses to the corner spot who either might be potentially looking at Ashland, or to bring people to downtown. And if we as a board, or based on what we're hearing from the community, feel that that's not what they want to do, then we need to have that discussion, as Carl said, after the season, and review it.
Well, it does, it has a playground over there, and we've
Right.
had entertainment over
Oh,
there
yeah.
and things like that. So, but anyway, that's my only
There's a
point.
musician there right now, I think.
Yep, there is.
And a food truck, and,
Yep.
okay,
All right.
If I could I dare to make a comment?
Sure.
sure.
I think the corner spot's actually quite a special place. I mean, I've visited a lot of towns around here, and it is quite a special place, and people enjoy being there. And I don't know how many liquor licenses you've given out there, but there's people there right now, and they seem to be having a lot of fun. So
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
Any-
you. Any other questions?
They're
or
there
if,
without a liquor license right now, so,
any,
and the people are having fun, so that was my point earlier.
all right, so any further discussion, or ready to have a motion?
I was just gonna
here?
repeat what everybody else said, and I wanna thank them for taking the heat off of me, because I seem to be Mr. Downer every time when it comes to these issues, so, thank you for taking the heat
Him
off.
being me?
Yeah,
Is that-
all of you,
Yeah.
so thank you, I appreciate that.
As my mother used to say,
So we should
him has a
evaluate.
name.
Him has a name.
Okay, ready?
All right, Yolanda,
I
you wanna make
move
a
that we
motion?
approve the request for 14 one-day licenses for Zealous Beer Company at the Corner Spot for Friday, August 24th from 4 to 10, Sunday, August 25th from 2 to 10, Sunday, August 26th from 1 to 7, Monday, August 27th through Friday, August 31st from 4 to 10, Saturday, September 1st, 2 to 10, Sunday, September 2nd, 1 to 9, Monday, September 3rd, 1 to 9, Tuesday, September 4th through Thursday, September 6th, from 4 to 10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Good luck, and hopefully your weather's better this time.
Hope you find a place in town.
So, as I mentioned previously, the next one is 14 one-day liquor licenses for Exhibit A Brewing at the Corner Spot from September 21st through October 17th with various times, depending on the day of the week. Is there someone here? Ah, yes, okay. Go ahead, you just want to make a
Yeah, my name's Kelsey
presentation?
Roth. I'm the general manager from Exhibit A Brewing Company over here in Framingham. And, Beth Reynolds approached us about doing beer at the Corner Spot. So I came out and took a look at the space and, was like, absolutely, this place looks amazing. So we would be really excited to be able to pour beer at the Corner Spot.
Great, and you're the guys that moved into Jack's Abbey's old place?
Yep,
Is that
yeah,
your-
in the old
okay,
Jack's Abbey
very good.
location.
Okay.
You guys
So-
have had some great events there at the space.
Oh, thank you.
So what brings you to Ashland, since you guys have done some great stuff at your space in Framingham?
A few things. One is we have a lot of customers from Ashland, and anytime that I've mentioned that we're looking at doing something at the Corner Spot, they're like, oh my gosh, like you have to come. So I think it's a great way to really connect better with our fan base here in Ashland. But also, we don't have outdoor space, and having an ability to create an experience outside is something that we don't have, and that would be something that would be really exciting for us to be able to provide for our fans.
Okay. Maybe we should start renting the Corner Spot. That's not.
Well, the good thing is
Well,
that
I think there
The
is,
revenue,
I think there's a
the
rental
profit.
agreement that they have to go through.
Oh, okay.
the sales tax and.
When you sat down, and when you sit down with Beth to fill the documents, I just want to make sure, do you provide an indemnification insurance clause indemnifying the town and the Ashland Housing Trust, which actually owns the property? Because that's kind of important to me. I just need to know that that paperwork is being filed.
Yes, I mean, Beth sent me a bunch of paperwork that that I filled out. If there's any other documents that you need, we're happy to provide certificates of insurance and all of that as well.
All right, good.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Further questions?
Nope.
Discussion? All right. Is someone willing to
Sure.
read the motion? Yolanda, okay.
I move that we approve the request for 14 one-day licenses for Exhibit A at the Corner Spot for Friday, September 21st and Saturday, September 22nd from noon to 10, Sunday, September 23rd from noon to 6, Monday, September 24th through Wednesday, September 26th from 3 to 9, Friday, October 12th and Sunday, October 13th from noon to 10, Sunday, October 14th from noon to 6 p.m., Monday, October 15th through Wednesday, October 17th from 3 to 9.
Do I have a second? for that?
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck.
Okay,
Good luck.
very good, thanks. Okay, the next item is matter of Trichome marijuana dispensary proposed for 40 Pond Street in Ashland. Now, there's two parts to this, and I see Alex is here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. So we've had a lot of discussion about this matter, and as you can see, so I'm not anticipating public comment tonight unless things change drastically. There will be discussion and questions from board members. Alex is available for questions should people want to ask him. So there's two items here. One is whether or not the board will issue a letter of non-opposition under the state process, and should we do that, then the second item of discussion is to kind of hash out the draft host agreement and the draft development agreement, or to make sure that we've got it in place and have something that we're either willing to pass or follow up with to complete shortly. So thanks for being here, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
So I think unless, Michael, you had anything you wanted to add to the process. So I think what, unless we want to entertain a statement from Alex, we can just, and he's available, I'm sure, to answer questions should we have any further questions, but unless members have questions or thoughts, I think we can just go to statements or discussion amongst the board, if that's agreeable to everybody. So I'm just kind of, we've gone, we've all had a lot of discussion of this, and I guess that would be it's time to call the question, I think. So is it, Michael, what's the exact motion that we're considering here? Is it the whether or not to issue the letter of non-opposition? Is that simply it?
Yeah, just to reiterate what you were saying, Mr. Chair, I think the idea was to have the vote on the letter, of whether or not to issue the letter of non-opposition. And I think you could just phrase it as simply as that, whether or not the board does vote to issue or votes to not issue a letter of non-opposition.
Okay.
And then based on that, then you can determine if you need to go further in terms of the host community agreement and the development agreement, or I guess it is what it is.
So I don't know if folks want to make statements, or anybody's particularly eager to lead off here or say anything. Steve, go ahead.
Well, I would suggest, at least this is my position, that we've certainly individually as a board, we've certainly discussed this sufficiently. I think we've all individually reflected on this sufficiently, and I think we've received sufficient public input. So I would move to call the question at this point, which would require a second, a vote on that, and then a vote on the motion, on the letter.
Okay, so any further discussion?
Can you repeat that?
Sure, so I'm moving to call the question.
On the
Which-
letter of non-opposition?
No, I'm moving to call the question, which would stop discussion at this point, and we would take a vote as a board, to stop discussion, and then immediately go into a vote about the letter of non-opposition.
Well, I think that's up to the chairman to decide.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
That may be your
So-
opinion,
but
but
No,
I-
it's not my opinion. We are, this board
why are you
operates.
getting so
Let
argumentative?
me explain, Joe. This board, our policies operate under generally accepted rules of parliamentary procedure.
I think he's right.
And that is
Okay.
part of parliamentary procedure, is being able to call
We've
the
never done it
question.
before, that's why I'm asking.
No,
why we
yeah,
do
no,
it.
it's a valid point, but I think technically, I think Steve is correct.
Well,
but-
couldn't we put forward the motion to vote the letter of non-opposition, do any last discussion from that, and then, right? Because you have to have a motion and a second to be able to have discussion.
But I'm
So-
moving right
Yeah.
now to stop
Yeah.
discussion
So,
and go to a vote.
Yeah, so Steve has made a motion to stop discussion, so does he have a second for that motion? So. we
So
would-
this is, you know,
This is his
my,
attempt to
this is my
shorten things up.
position.
Yeah.
So it requires a second, and it requires a vote.
Then we can discuss
And then
that.
if it doesn't pass, then we move on to discussion. But if it does pass, then we immediately move on to a vote regarding the letter.
So we have second for purposes of discussion.
Now I'm confused.
All right.
Um,
Well, let's.
I don't understand how we can have a vote to stop discussion and then continue the discussion.
We can't.
That's right.
That's
We
so,
can't. So I made a motion, in essence, to stop discussion. So there's either a second or there isn't. If there's no second, we move on.
I'm not hearing a second.
But, okay, then we,
Then we'll
repeat your part about then we take a vote on the question. That's where you lost me.
So the process works by a member calling the question, right? So it requires a second. And the motion is to stop discussion. But we have to vote as a board to stop discussion. So that's the first vote.
Right.
so if I understand correctly, you're asking for a vote to have no further discussion amongst the board, and then do the vote for the
Exactly,
letter
right. That's-
of non-opposition.
That's the motion.
And he's
Yeah,
asked for a
and-
second.
But, and I'm asking for clarification, because you said after we take the vote on letter of non-opposition, then you said, and if it passes, or if it
No,
doesn't.
no, if my motion to stop discussion passes, if it passes, then we would move immediately into a vote for the letter, yea or nay.
And then after that,
After that, nothing, depending on
Yeah.
what happens. If we were to pass or approve a letter of non-opposition, then we would move on to a discussion of the agreements.
Right.
If we don't, then the rest of it is moot.
So so I've asked for a second, I've not gotten a second, so I'm going to say that the motion has not been seconded. We're back to our usual discussion or not discussion, so,
Then you can go to the question on the vote.
no.
Yes,
No,
you-
Steve just moved to cut off discussion and
Right,
he
and
didn't
no
get a
one
second.
seconded
And
that.
no one seconded, so now you
So
go
the
to.
next step
so
is
now
to
you-
bring the motion
to a
forward
vote.
for the letter of non-opposition.
Correct.
That's correct.
Open it up for
Okay.
discussion, we
Okay.
have our discussion,
I
and
think
then we
we're
vote.
saying the same thing, right, yeah. So we have a motion on the letter of non-opposition, so
No, we
open
don't
it
have
up
a
for,
motion. We don't have a motion on the letter yet. No one has made a motion.
well, I don't know why we're getting bogged down in this, but
So
kinda
maybe
crazy.
I could jump in. So if somebody would like to make a motion to issue the letter of non-opposition, if that's seconded, then you can then debate whether or not
Yeah,
you should vote.
Okay, so moved.
all right. So I will, motion has been made and seconded,
Second.
right? You seconded.
Yes.
So we're open for
Now you can
discussion
debate,
now. OMG. Okay, so, does anyone care to discuss? The
we've
motion to
discussed
cut
it more
off
than enough, to
discussion
be honest
failed,
with you.
so I think people must want to say something, so. I will say something that, you know, and we've already talked about this to some extent, but I'm generally in favor of issuing this letter, because I think of all the, there are a number of hazards in this world, and to my mind, a medical marijuana dispensary on Pond Street is not a significant hazard. We've got a lot of safeguards. And we do have an opportunity to provide a service that I think is reasonable and needed, at least by some people in our community. We've heard substantial testimony, both in the potential dangers and the benefits. You know, I know the kinds of establishments that we issue licenses to and that we have in our town and that cause real harm. We're gonna be talking about later tonight the opioid epidemic, and that's caused real harm in this town. So I'm looking at this matter as something we've heard a lot about. There's a lot of safeguards in the panoply of potential dangers that we're facing. I don't see it being significant. I do see potential benefits both for services and revenue to this town. And revenue is an important matter for things we want to do, and the good things that we want to do in this town. So, of course, revenue can't make up for something that's evil, but I don't believe this is evil. I do not believe it's a significant danger compared to, you know, we have a number of liquor stores, we have a number of drug stores. We put up with all sorts of potential hazards for the greater good because they bring benefits, and I'd say that this fits very well within the very reasonably within the kind of tapestry of things that we do that could be potentially harmful, but that also have great many benefits. So I would urge my fellow board members to vote to issue this letter of non-opposition. So that's my take on it.
well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I will. I think that this whole thing has been handled poorly from the start. I watched a hearing that we had last October recently, and it was stunning to me how we haven't really moved in any direction since that discussion. I asked during that discussion for someone to convince me why this was a good idea, And I haven't heard anything other than revenue, and that doesn't work for me. So I also would like to address, this is something that's come up during this whole discussion, is this whole use of social media. And I think that we've had this discussion as a board in private, and maybe we need to have it in public, that if we wish to use social media to discuss issues that are before the board, I think that they should be approved by the board, and how we use that social media should be something that is approved by the board. I was caught off guard by this thing that's in front of me here, and I wasn't happy about it. And I was discouraged by it. As a matter of fact, I've been discouraged by this whole discussion. And it seems to me, and it reared its ugly head again tonight, that we can talk about everything logically until we get to this, and then it's off the cliff for whatever reason that might be. And to allow this to go forward unopposed, which is the language that they use, it was disturbing to me at that meeting, because what my quote was that there's nothing else that we do in this town where the board has to issue a letter that says we won't oppose this, except for this issue. And there's something in that, that mandate that rubs me the wrong way, and I can't get around that. And so that's my feeling.
Everybody's looking at me.
Yeah, I
wanna
guess
go
we don't
next?
want to
Otherwise
get
I
into
will.
a debate, so.
No, and I don't think it's a debate, but if you ask for comments, I mean, my comments haven't changed since day one, and they're not gonna change tonight, so. Again, the financials that were provided, they're all estimated financials, because there's nothing really to back anything up on. People are saying there's gonna be millions of dollars of revenues coming into this town. A lot of towns are second guessing those revenue figures as well, because there's nothing to bank on. Why? Because it's new. There's nothing out there. So I don't know how they're generating these figures on estimated guesstimates. And everybody's, waving flags that, oh, this is a financial windfall for the town. Well, none of the towns that have signed these things yet actually haven't signed them, because there's still too many questions that haven't been answered. And until such time, then I just don't feel comfortable going forward with it. So that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I just, I'll just basically reiterate or agree with Joe that he's been very consistent, and I think I have as well, but on the opposite side of this question. So I certainly support moving forward with a letter of non-opposition.
All right.
Rob?
Yes, ma'am.
So this has been a very interesting and difficult discussion, review in regards to how to move forward. And certainly when about 6 or 8 weeks ago, I realized that I would be the deciding vote. And I am certainly the first person to support businesses that want to come to Ashland, that I think are going to be positive community members, help with our economic development. What was telling for me is similar to what Carl said. What other business has to come before the Board of Selectmen to give it a letter of non-opposition to say, we don't oppose you coming to our town? I also see this as, in doing some research about Oregon, which a lot of people say, you gotta look at Oregon and what they're doing. It's a minority of communities in Oregon that support medical and retail marijuana in their communities. For me, similar to what Joe said, this is still new for Massachusetts. I understand, I know medicinal has been around for a while, but what still concerns me is, as you look at what is going on in the retail market for these medicinal companies to become viable and stay viable, the majority of them are pushing and applying for retail licenses. And and I know we, you know, if you look at our host agreement and our development agreement, we've put all kinds of things in here to say it can't happen easily in Ashland. My concern is, once we allow them in, that question will keep coming up. And for me, and I guess I'm sort of telling where I'm going with my vote, I don't think it's the right thing for Ashland right now. I know people are saying that they want to be able to get medicinal marijuana. Southborough is opening one within months. Their building is going up. They're working on their approvals. I expect at some point Framingham will allow it as well. So that's all I want to say.
Okay. So, the motion has been made and any further discussion? All right, I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor of issuing the letter of non-opposition, say aye.
Aye.
So I have 4 votes in favor, no. So I count 2 votes, all those against, say nay, or aye, I guess they say aye, right?
It's still aye.
It's still on.
No, we're voting against it.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the motion does not pass. And, there are 2 votes
2 to 3.
in favor and 3 votes against. So the letter of non-opposition does not pass. So, sorry, Alex. So,
Can I make a statement?
sure.
Sure.
I hope that none of you or your family members ever have to use a medical marijuana product. But your decision should have been made for those that do. And it shouldn't have been based on my business or whether it would be successful. Those are my business decisions. And I think to the point that you didn't hear any benefits aside from revenue is also inaccurate, because you heard many, many, many residents of Ashland come in front of this podium, in front of the annual town hall podium, and they said the benefits and the values to them. And I think what the decision the board made tonight did not take any of those things into account. It did not take into account any of the patient's stories or the benefits. And to say you can go somewhere else to get something, I just think if you had to go to CVS in Southborough, you wouldn't be happy. If you had to go to your liquor store in Southborough, you wouldn't be happy. It would be an inconvenience, it would be difficult, and that is said with you being fully healthy. And so I will leave it at that, and I thank you for your time. But it is very disappointing, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for your patience,
Thank you.
Alex.
Let me just comment, Chair,
Yeah, I-
briefly.
Okay.
We are judging what's in the best interest of Ashland. That takes into consideration everyone in Ashland, not
Not a
some people in Ashland. So that's what my comments were. Is the benefit to the people that that testified before us real? I'm assuming absolutely. Does that outweigh the concerns of others as a whole, in my estimation? No.
No, all right. But to clarify, you did say there was no benefits presented, but there were benefits presented. So yes, Yolanda.
So just one last. First of all, I want to thank Michael and Jen, and I know Lisa Mead, and I appreciate the work that you've done on the host agreement and and I know that took a lot of time. But I do not appreciate, and I'm not usually one to talk this way, but I do not appreciate the way he said we did not take into consideration the voices of the people that were here before us. He does not know our process. He does not know what we thought through. It was not an easy decision. Sure. And, if anyone does not like the job that we're doing, they're more than welcome to run. This was a tough decision. It took me a lot of time. You ask, I've spoken to many people to get to where I am. So.
Certainly. Okay.
Good.
All right, so
I'm sure it was
thank
a
you
tough
all,
decision.
and thanks for your participation in this
Yeah.
long process.
Yeah,
All right.
I would just like to add, I'm glad there's some conclusion to it. I
Yes.
would actually
I think
agree
we
with
all are.
Carl.
Yes.
I think the process was a little awkward.
Definitely.
That being said, I think a lot of us contributed to that. But I'm glad to have some closure on this, and because this has eaten up a lot of time.
It
And
did.
I am, you know, I'm fine with it. I mean, we did put a lot of time in the host agreement and the development agreement that's what we do. We bring a
Yeah.
product. It probably
But-
made your decision harder.
And I think everybody on this board, you know, struggled in their own way, reflected a lot, talked a lot, and, you know, you know, I appreciate what Yolanda said. I know it was, you know, the burden of, she was the swing vote tonight.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not an easy place to be.
No.
So,
I mean, if you know, I mean, I've talked to you, I was going back and forth. There was really just a few things that, as I thought about it, made me realize that this was not the right time for us to sign a letter of non-opposition.
And I'm sorry that the gentleman is not here, but I just, on a personal note, my mother died of cancer, and she was on it.
Yeah,
So,
that was a little bit
That's,
uncalled for.
I had a struggle with that decision, because I saw some of the benefits that it had, but I also saw other things that I were not getting answers to. So, and until those answers are provided to me, my decision isn't gonna change. So, he was
Okay.
wrong to say what he said.
On to not happier things, but
Right.
someone that
Okay.
we can celebrate.
All right, so thank you all for that, and I see there's a group here, so now we're,
He's not here, though.
Yeah,
Oh,
Beth
all right,
did
let's-
text me and let me know
Okay.
that she was running a little bit behind.
all
So you
right.
guys are gonna have to wait,
consent agenda.
talk amongst yourselves.
That's
Yes.
it.
Well, we'll do the consent agenda.
Yeah, we can
Can we
do that.
get that up on the, Beth is a little late, so
Yeah,
we're
you
doing
should
the
have
consent
closed it this
agenda.
That wasn't an easy
at
decision
work.
for you to take, I know.
Okay. Oh, I just wanted to recognize, because you guys did a lot of work, and, you know, it was,
But that's our job.
All right,
oh, I know, but still, I think,
We probably made it harder for you.
what?
all right, so,
I mean, because some of the stuff that I said, you put into it, I'm like,
all right, so the consent agenda is up on the big screen there.
Yep.
So I just asked the board members, are there any items that anyone wants to pull from the consent agenda?
No,
no, they don't do that.
we don't do
No.
alcohol.
Okay, I just,
Move to accept the consent agenda as
So the
presented.
answer is, okay, no one wants to
Second.
post anything. Okay, the consent agenda, to pass the consent agenda, has been, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the consent agenda has been approved with all the minutes. Do I see Beth in the house yet? No? When do we?
No.
You guys went too fast in the consent agenda.
She's walking
Okay.
in.
Okay, Beth, she's standing.
She's coming from Southborough, so
Oh, that's
Okay.
right,
That'll
party,
do it.
she had a
That'll
party
do it.
going on.
maybe
They
she,
had a,
Oh,
She's celebrating that.
yeah, I think they had a
Oh, nice.
supper. did something.
maybe she got her medical marijuana there.
What?
She had to go, how?
that wasn't me.
Maybe
That was
she
Michael.
stopped at the
Uh,
corner-
he's got a
maybe she
ballot
stopped
for
at
us
the
to look
corner
at.
spot for a beer.
So,
That too.
There isn't any there right now.
I
There
don't see
she
anything.
is,
There you
Oh, here she is, okay.
the lady of the
Yeah,
hour.
we'll just,
Yeah.
all right.
So we all set with the consent agenda?
Yes, I
Yes,
think
we
so,
are.
yes. So, well, here she is. Okay, so I have here a proclamation. So, look at this, Beth. So, I'm just gonna read this
Well,
proclamation.
she has to stand at the podium,
Oh,
so
yes,
people know,
yeah.
I mean,
Ms.
not that anyone doesn't know
Are
who
you,
Beth
are you
is,
ready,
but-
Beth, to come forward? You can leave your stuff in the, okay. Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Beth Rosenblum is approaching the lectern. Okay, I'm gonna read this proclamation.
Why don't you stand up next to me as you're
Yeah,
reading?
there you
can
go.
hand it
Oh,
to
there
him.
you go.
there you go. Man, I'll tell you, he's new at this.
See, you've done it in large type. There she is. Good luck. So New York City's gain is our loss, I guess. All right. This is a Board of Selectmen proclamation, which I have the honor to read. Whereas Beth Rosenblum has lived in Ashland for many years and has found herself serving the community in numerous ways, and Beth has been an active member of the Open Space and Recreation Committee since August 28, 1998. And Beth has also served on the Community Preservation Committee since February 28, 2003. Additionally, Beth has served on the Conservation Restriction Committee since February 28, 2014. You're kind of late to that one, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't established.
Okay, that's your excuse. All right. The benefit of Beth's hard work and dedication as an active member of the community will be felt for many years. That is so true. Her compassion and devotion to everything she has been involved in will benefit the community and ensure its future success and prosperity. Hear, hear. Now therefore, we, the Selectmen of the Town of Ashland, do hereby proclaim Saturday, July 14th, 2018 as Beth Rosenblum Day. Very good. And, the crowd's going wild here. We urge all residents to make known their appreciation for her devotion to the town of Ashland. We wish her good health and good fortune. Congratulations, Beth.
Thank you
Very
so
good.
much.
Thank you. We'll miss you.
You know, I saw you loading it up today, and I was like, I wonder if I should stop.
So, Beth, before your speech, which can't be more than 45 minutes, by the way, we have another proclamation.
Oh, cool.
Representative Jack Lewis was unable to be here tonight because session was going late, but he sent a proclamation from the House of Representatives, which he asked me to read. From the House of Representatives, be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Beth Rosenblum in recognition of nearly 20 years, I'm sorry. 20 years of I was adding all of them up. 20 years of selfless and dedicated service to the town of Ashland. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 11th day of July 2018 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, by Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House, offered by Jack Patrick Lewis, State Representative.
No, very nice.
Wow. I am humbled and honored. Wow. I'm almost speechless, but not quite. So thank you all of my friends and colleagues for coming. It's quite an honor, and I'm really humbled by this. And it's interesting because I first got involved in town politics because I moved to the town and I didn't have children, and I didn't know how to meet people. So this was my socialization into Ashland by volunteering to join the Open Space Committee. I came into town hall. I went to former town clerk Cindy Watling, and I said, "What committees have openings?" And she said, "Open Space." And I said, "That sounds like me. I'm a New York City girl. What would be more appropriate than going on and joining an Open Space Committee?" Which I did, and have forever been honored to be a member of. And it's been the most wonderful experience that I have ever had in this community, and the people that I have met have been amazing and are all team players and have done incredible things for this great town, which has moved leaps ahead of where we used to be. So, and some of the things that I'm most proud to have worked on was the adoption of the Community Preservation Act, which I see some in Sherry in the back, who was instrumental, and Roberta and Judith were instrumental, and David Foster were instrumental in moving that forward. And we are so fortunate to be one of the first adopters of CPA. Another one of our great achievements in this community was developing the first open space and recreation plan, which we're now very close to having finished the update on, and that's another great achievement that the town can be proud of. And the number of land purchases. And I remember sitting in the Whitty's, Dave and Cynthia Whitty's living room, when we were members of We Love Ashland, and Janet was here, and Kathy was there, and I think there were others. And we said, what do we want to do for this community? And we said, Warren Woods is a priority, and developing a community garden was a priority. And both of those have been achieved. So I'm just so proud of everything that we've done, and that I've been able to be a member of all of these great leaps forward. And thanks to you for continuing to appoint me to the Open Space Committee so that I could participate. And then the Riverwalk, and a lot of land purchases that we hadn't done previously. And we've now been able to protect a number of very valuable parcels, and I hope that we continue to do so. So thank you very much. I'm really honored by this. I hadn't expected a proclamation by Representative Lewis, that's for sure. And I'm a little nervous. And I was just at in my adopted town. I was just at a party there, and it's going to be so hard to leave these communities that I so love and have become so ingrained with, and all of the great people that I've worked with, and hopefully you'll continue to the fight, the good fight, because that's what we need. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Beth. And hold on just for a second, because I'm sure the board members have any comments or thoughts they want to?
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I'd love to. We've butted heads a few times, and
Only a few.
that's okay, only a few, because my head hurts, and you would win all the time. I am definitely going to miss you. You have been an instrumental individual for the community, and you've been a voice for those who don't have the ability to speak up. And they remind me of myself that way, so I want to say I wish you the very best. I'm sorry you're leaving. I know why you're leaving, and I understand completely. Family comes first, and I get it.
And in response, I just want to say that I first met you at town meeting when you were still a policeman, and you were a pro-labor activist. And you would stand up and talk about, the union, and talk about your role before you were a selectman. And I hugely admire that.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You have a very
I'm gonna
powerful
miss you.
history.
Well, thank you. I do have a colorful history, that's for sure.
Powerful.
Powerful?
Colorful,
I don't know,
too.
colorful, I don't know. Yeah. Thank you.
Yolanda?
We are going to miss you, kid.
Thank you.
So, Beth, similar to what I said to you when after the hug, I've always respected what you do and how you do it. I haven't always agreed, and we've had some discussions, but I appreciate your passion and what you have accomplished for Ashland. And I think as a community, we are better for it. And I am going to miss you. I am going to miss, what you do and how passionately you do it. And I would say, know that you're always welcome back to town. And if none of them let you stay with them, I really mean that.
Thank you.
I just think it's important to let people know that it's okay to disagree and then move forward from there. And so thank you.
It's democracy.
Exactly. So thank you for all you've done.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Steve?
So I see one of my colleagues, a board member from the farmer's market, so I think it's reasonable and fair to proclaim Saturday also Beth Rosenblum Day at the Ashland Farmers Market.
Definitely.
No, another day, another proclamation.
Thank you. All right. Does that mean I have to dance?
So that means you have to be there now.
Oh, I'll be there.
She's always there. She always is.
Lunch is on me.
Okay, thank you.
Carl?
Or breakfast, whatever.
Yeah, Beth, I'm really going to miss you. I hope it's not my late night phone calls that are driving you out of town, because there have been a lot of them where you've been counsel to me on issues and support to me in difficult times, and really a rock in some of the movements that we've been involved in together. And I'm sad to see you go, and we will all really, really miss you, but good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to
Thank you
add,
very
Beth,
much.
that you're one of the people that make this town go, and you've done so many things over the years, and you should take great pride in the success that you've achieved here, and we will miss you in your activism and a lot of fronts. So, thank you, and and New York City's gained a great new resident, so good luck in your next phase of life.
Thank you.
So-
Well, I want to come back for the grand opening of the Riverwalk Trail.
Oh, there
I
you
want
go.
to cut that ribbon.
All right, great. And
All right, we need a photo op.
I think we do. So everybody out, and if people
The
in the
open space
audience want to
people.
come in too, I think people have worked, we're gonna have a big picture, if that's all right, unless you just want, like me, the celebrity. Oh, yes.
I wasn't going to do this in front of everybody.
Oh, all right, but you couldn't resist.
Privately.
There's nothing private here.
There's nothing private.
Yeah, that's good thought. That's great, yes, good thinking.
For all of you done.
Oh,
You have been the best.
Yeah, well,
You have been the
very
best.
good. Thank you, Dave. I was remiss, is there other people want to speak about Beth? Maybe there's any,
A roasting opportunity.
yeah, this is an opportunity for bringing up past faults and
She'll get them
mistakes
from
as
New
well.
York.
So, Mr. Featherston, would you care to come forward? You're not known for being shy.
Important thing to, you know,
Can you come to
Mr.
the
Hackinson
podium
and,
so that the
my very dear friend Roberta were the ones that, I'll use the word, hounded me about Warren Woods. And I'm very proud that the town did Warren Woods, but in a very honest moment here,
Uh-oh.
and Roberta knows this and Carl knows this, I didn't necessarily have their same passion about Warren Woods. But when Beth talked to me calmly, rationally, and in a fact-based manner, and Beth, and everybody knows, and Beth and I kid about it when we see each other in the morning for coffee, Beth and I don't agree on almost anything politically. But Beth was so influential and so professional that she got me, and if my wife's listening, I'm in a lot of trouble, to take my closed mind approach to a lot of things and open my eyes and be
Interesting.
and see what the greater, and you mentioned and I wasn't gonna say anything until you mentioned the greater good. And what you really did is I think you really opened my mind, and you did it with your professionalism and your adorable smile, and you were persistent but fair and honest, and I've always respected you from, you know, before and even more afterwards. So I'm gonna really miss you. I'm gonna miss seeing you at coffee.
Thank you, John. That's quite an insight. All right. Anyone else? Oh, yes, here comes.
Oh, of course. Needs to be. Needs to be.
I just want to say, it's been such a pleasure serving on the committees with you. And she's much less emotional than I am. So you taught me some things about how to present your case in a way to win people with facts rather than emotion and passion. I'm going to miss you so much and miss going to special teas with you.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to come back and visit.
Okay.
She's
right.
wonderful. I don't know how
All right.
we're going to fill her shoes.
All right, great.
That'd be difficult.
Words of, thank you. And Sherry herself has been very, so those are words of wisdom from Sherry, who's been very active herself and very successful. Thank you, yeah. Did you?
Hey, now we have a place to go. To visit.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Oh, that'll, yeah. Well, so let's have a picture then.
I'm ready when you are.
Everybody wants a picture with us, of course.
Might get
well,
those legs in
You
there.
did.
Legs. CC top.
Is he, yeah.
Hopefully they posted somewhere.
Yeah, you just want, yeah.
If people in the audience want to come and get a picture too, I think that'd be great.
Open space, folks.
Don't be shy.
Actually, come on. Yeah, come on, of course. Come on. No, really. Everybody. It's in order. David, you two in the back. You guys, how many? What side? Keep going home.
Do a wide angle. Panasonic, panoramic, or whatever you call it, the panoramic.
Great, thank you. You guys get enough? Is that it? Okay.
That's it, one shot, that's all.
Hey. I'm glad. Tom wants to.
I put it back. Okay. The picture that we took with the gardens. Yep. I know it got up on Facebook. Did it get up anywhere else? Do we have it?
I don't know that, I don't know if I took those pictures. I don't think I did.
I don't think I did, so. Thank you, Susan.
I'm gonna look. That would have been our last meeting, right?
Was it our last one or I thought it was our first one in June. I forget.
Okay. You put it on Facebook already?
No, I'm actually looking to see if I have the one from the community garden, but I don't think I was the one. Yeah, I didn't take that picture.
Should we take a 5-minute break?
No.
You guys want a break or not?
You probably
Let's keep going.
We gotta keep going.
All right,
We
let's
got
keep
exactly.
It's a little loud.
Yeah, well,
All
that's
right.
why I said.
Thank you, folks. We do have to continue. There is life after Beth, so we have to keep moving.
Oh, wow.
Debt exclusion, really fascinating.
Oh, the new
stuff.
business. Very boring stuff.
Is Michael here? He's got to give us that thing. Susan, do we have the debt exclusion language available, or does Michael have it, or?
Michael has it.
Yeah, 'cause they didn't see anything in that packet.
No.
He's got to hand it out.
Okay.
Those were Tony's, though.
We don't do.
That was his thing.
That
That's
was
a
his thing.
military thing.
You get guitar picks.
So, Michael, we're on
say,
the
did
debt
you give her a guitar
exclusion. Do you have
pick,
the
or-
language to
I do.
hand out?
I do. There you go.
One piece?
So, yes, if you could take one of these and pass them down.
So just to refresh everybody's memory, the public safety building, we are considering a debt exclusion to fund it, and Michael's going to tell us about that. And that would be a language on the ballot, upcoming ballot, which Michael will tell us about. So go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Apparently I've
They give one for
passed
give
out
us your
our water bill
bills,
too, yeah. So the Board of Selectmen is required to vote to put ballot questions on the ballot. And usually we have a little bit of luxury of time. But because this is going to be on, and what we're planning on having it be on, is the November general election ballot, it actually needs to be to the Secretary of State's office by August 1st. So,
For their approval?
for it to be on
Language,
the
okay.
ballot. So that's why it's being presented to you tonight. And the question is, shall the town of Ashland be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the costs of an owner's project manager, engineering, and design services related to the construction of a public safety building to be located on a portion of the properties located at 12 and 16 Union / 1 East Union Street, and including all costs incidental or related to thereto. So it's not for the construction of the building. I did hear, I do have news that the bond bill that included the $25 million for the public safety building construction was actually signed into law yesterday. So that's one step closer to that. This would only be for the owner's project manager, engineering, and design services, and we're going to expect that to be between $3 and $5 million. We'll have a tighter estimate of that as we get closer to the election. So,
We won't put an actual amount in the ballot
No,
question,
with,
though,
with
will
debt
we?
exclusions, you,
Okay.
you just, yeah.
Okay. Good.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay.
Any further discussion? You need us to approve this language,
I do,
correct?
I do.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ready?
Any further, are people ready to, okay. So we need a motion to, adopt this language. Someone want to read the
Yep, I
motion?
move-
No, the motion's up at the top.
I move that we, as the Board of Selectmen, by 2/3 vote to seek voter approval at a special election to exclude from the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, the funds required for the payment of principal and interest on bonds, note, or certifications of indebtedness.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that the correct one, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay.
A motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, none opposed. Motion carries unanimously. So we will have a ballot question on the November election. Is that
Correct.
correct? For,
Correct.
that needs to pass by two, no, it's just a major,
Two-thirds.
it is a two-thirds vote.
No, you will
at the
need a
ballot.
two-thirds vote at town meeting.
At town meeting.
You
that's
only
what I
need,
Right.
Majority
a
of the
majority
ballot.
vote
Majority
at the
So
ballot.
we'll
The
do this
two-thirds
at
here,
we'll do this at our special fall town meeting, and
yes,
then we'll also do it on the ballot.
yes.
And
So-
when do we find out from the state, like, the ballot question number?
Well, since this will, oh, that's a good question, because we got
There
some.
are, I think,
Yeah, from
3
others, right?
statewide ballot questions.
I do not know. I
Okay.
will find that out.
Okay.
That's a good question, though.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so the next item is discuss class action litigation against opioid manufacturers. So I had suggested this earlier and asked Michael to do a little background on this and bring it to the board for consideration and see what the board's feeling is in terms of whether or not to move forward or, you know, to ask Michael to maybe get us further information. But simply put, that certain pharmaceutical companies who manufactured a variety of opioid medications, and there's an ongoing series in the Metro West Daily News, which I would recommend people take a look at. That these manufacturers knowingly marketed a variety of highly addictive medications that they knew or had occasion to know were highly addictive, yet they marketed them as not being addictive and being effective for pain relief when they weren't actually in many cases all that effective, and that as a result of these actions caused widespread death, destruction, and costs throughout this country, and that as a municipality, Ashland has borne some of those costs both through death and injury to its residents and through municipal costs. So at this point, over 100 municipalities in this state alone have either filed suit directly through their own attorneys or has joined a class action suit. For example, the city of Framingham has hired their own law firm to pursue this. And another example nearby, the town of Wayland has been involved in a class action suit. So I mentioned this a meeting or two ago, and I've asked Michael to review this question with the staff and come up with some information for our consideration. So that's where we're at.
Sure.
with this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can get into a lot of detail about the specifics of the litigation. I don't think that's necessarily what you're looking for, but as I think you might have said, over 100 communities in Massachusetts, so out of the 351 cities and towns so far, over 100 have joined in this essentially class action litigation against some of the major manufacturers of opioid products and medications in the nation, or around the world, actually. Framingham, as you mentioned, actually, they didn't hire their own attorney. They actually signed on to essentially a class action
Oh, they did as
lawsuit
well.
with Worcester.
Okay.
Attorney Hackinson could probably speak to, the mechanics of the legal system more than I could, but really it's a conglomeration of 9 law firms. Basically what they are doing is they are suing the manufacturers, saying that they violated the Controlled Substances Act, which required distributors and manufacturers to be legally responsible to identify and investigate and report and halt suspicious orders before they were shipped. And the accusation is that even with evidence that there were some of these fraudulent orders and that there were all these harms that were coming out of the opioid marketplace, those manufacturers still managed to push those out and not flag those. So beginning in 2017, there were cases filed in the Massachusetts federal court system, and they've been consolidated into what's known as a multi-district litigation in the Northern District of Ohio. And what they plan on doing there is there's a number of litigants as part of this, and Judge Dan Polster, who is the presiding judge on the MDL in Ohio, has ordered the trial of 3 what they're considering bellwether cases from March of 2019. And these 3 cases should guide settlement discussions with the rest of the communities that are part of this litigation in the future. So just to get to the specifics of the financial aspects of this, this conglomeration of attorneys, the one that I have been in contact with is Richard Sandman from his firm. What they are doing is they are representing clients entirely on a contingency fee basis of 25% of the gross recovery, with all out-of-pocket costs fronted in the litigation. If they are successful and they reach a settlement that meets with our approval, their out-of-pocket costs will be reimbursed. The benefit of doing, or one of the benefits of doing these class action claims, is that a lot of those fixed costs related to the research and everything is borne by all of the litigants or the people who have signed on. So, that will diminish the amount that we would lose through the recovery. And then in the event a settlement cannot be reached, the case will be remanded back to Massachusetts for trial, where they have a collection of trial attorneys and feel confident that they would prevail in that. So I will say that what we will have to do is probably collect some information for this and help provide some information to enter into evidence. I think this is information that we should be collecting anyway, just for our own edification and our own strategies in terms of how to combat the opioid epidemic. So I really don't see any downside to being a part of this. I have talked to some other communities. Their concerns were also, what kind of resources will it take? Will it actually be cost neutral, or not cost the town anything other than something out of resources and time spent? And they feel confident moving forward as well. So,
Michael, how far back is the litigation going to be going to? I mean, because there have been a number of years that, I'll just use Ashland as an example of the ODs that have happened in this community. They haven't been just 1 or 2 years. I mean, they've gone back at least 10 to 15 years where there's been 1 to 2 and even potentially 3 ODs throughout the, within the last 10 years. So are they going back 10 years? I mean, how far back are they going to go on this litigation? Because that would be a fruit for this town anyway, because the number of the ODs that we've had. And this is before Narcan was even used or whatever, but it just, and that's the other thing too. I mean, are they looking at the number of Narcan incidences that people are being given the Narcan as a result of, their ODing? Because there's been repeated use of by similar individuals that they've been using Narcan 2 or 3 or 4 times. So that definitely changes, the measurement of the accuracy of the the reports that are going on.
Well, the cost of Narcan is something that's going to be sought as recoverable under
Okay.
part of this. Narcan, the extensive funds used on increased police presence, emergency medical response, Narcan treatment, opioid-related workers' compensation costs, and abuse prevention programs are some of the things that they're going to seek reimbursement for the cities and towns, the money that they have spent on those activities. They're also looking to have the opioid epidemic declared a public nuisance, which requires the manufacturers and distributors to abate it. And they will also seek funds for future programs directed at prevention, education, and treatment.
Yes.
Okay.
So do you have an estimate, or have they given an estimation of what the costs would be for the town if we decide to sign on to this? Not that it's a numbers and cents thing, but just to give us an idea as to how many, what our resources would be to work on this.
No, I mean, nothing from a dollars and cents standpoint. They did say that, we would need to collect some information and provide it to them. But again, all of the out-of-pocket costs are covered by are fronted by the firm in the litigation, which is that's the arrangement with all the municipalities.
So the information they're looking at is to see the number of incidences that, opioid-related incidences within the town. Oh, that shouldn't be too hard to figure that.
Carl, did you?
Well, keep in mind, they also have to be able to trace it back to the drug company.
Right.
Not just anybody that happened to
Right.
OD. It's
You
not.
have to fund the drug itself.
And I think all of this is fine, other than the fact that people should realize that these cases are long and drawn out and very expensive and very seldom reap large rewards other than to lawyers. The Exxon Valdez, some of you probably weren't even born when that happened, was only settled 3 years ago, and it happened in 1989.
I think we're all.
I was involved with some of my clients, my Native American clients, that were involved in a class action lawsuit that ran for 3 administrations. Started in the Clinton administration, went all the way through the Bush administration, and was finally settled in the Obama administration. And no one was happy with the outcome, except for the lawyers.
I see this similar to cigarettes.
And it's exactly the same.
Cigarettes.
And that's not saying that these people shouldn't pay some price to somebody someplace. It just takes an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of resources. And so I think that we need to have our headlights on going into this to speak to Yolanda's point of exactly, even the indirect costs that it's going to find. How much is it going to cost for your staff to come up with this information to provide?
Right.
And so I'm not saying let's not do it. I'm saying let's have our lights on and our eyes open.
I agree.
Going forward with this.
And I just, I think the tobacco settlement is a classic example of something that took a long time, but in the end was very worthwhile and achieved a lot of benefits. So I'm getting a sense from the board that they're interested in moving forward, but do want you to kind of quantify, and I don't know if that means, what our own research or staff time would be involved, is what I'm hearing, and your thoughts on next steps, whether it means interviewing with a law firm or.
Well, I think having a discussion with the law firm again. There's one thing that I do want to clarify, is if we do go down this road, and halfway down the road we feel like it's taking up too much time of our staff, or it's not working the way we thought it would, and we decide to withdraw, and I don't know if that's something that you can do legally or pull yourself out of the suit, would we then be on the hook for some of the costs that they've incurred? And I think that's something I want to clarify.
Okay.
I do not mind spending the staff time on this, because I think it's important information for us to have, not just for this,
There is that point,
but for
yeah.
grant programs, for just to look at, I hate to talk about these in terms of metrics, but they are metrics, and coming up with strategies on how we can address this and keep this from happening. And the only way you can tell whether you're making
point, yeah.
a dent in it is if you have
Do you know where you're at
statistics.
before?
Yeah, so,
I think, I just want to reiterate the point that I made to Joe, is that if, it's one thing to have this data as far as public health data, which I think is a very valid thing to have and an important thing to have. But it's another thing to create that nexus between these problems and the pharmaceutical companies. That's the difficult one.
That's the nub of the
Yeah.
case. Okay. So, I think we want a motion to give you at least
Yeah, I
permission to
think
move
that'd be-
forward and continue exploring this and maybe coming back with a more distinct, hard and fast recommendation. Is that fair?
I think that is there a deadline when towns and other municipalities can catch on to some of these class action suits? You know, I'm just kinda curious as to see, you know, the Johnny-come-latelys will be the last ones to come on this thing, you know, so are they making sure that everybody's on before a certain time frame?
no, they have not given a deadline. They've just
Okay.
said, you know, these bellwether cases are gonna be in March 2019.
Okay.
And I'd be happy, Michael, to, you know, to get on a phone call with the attorneys or once you've done that, you know, or,
Okay.
just discuss that, so. All right, so, I get a sense that the board's agreeable to moving forward. Do we need a motion or,
I don't think it's required.
I don't think so. I think
All right.
you as a chair can direct Michael
all
to do
right,
that.
so we'll continue
On behalf of the
looking
board.
into this, and I think the next step is either an update or come back with a hard and fast recommendation for
Then I
distinct
think
action.
if we do decide to do it, we would need a motion to
Mm-hmm.
move forward
Okay,
officially.
Right.
very good. All right, well, thank you all. Thank you, Michael, for that
Oh, you're welcome.
work. Okay, so, okay, so the next one is the housing legislation, the land use bill dealing with zoning, subdivision control, permitting, master planning. So I had asked that this be put on the agenda, and I think we've got some supportive information, and Steve, I know, passed some stuff around. So basically, if I, to my limited knowledge, summarizing this, you know, we've been concerned about building housing and striking the right balance, and this is Governor Baker. There's a number of bills, is my understanding, but Governor Baker's bill is one that seems to strike a path that the Mass Municipal Association has endorsed, which is under certain circumstances, and I'm looking at the members and maybe Michael for specifics, but under certain housing legislation that you wouldn't need the usual 2/3 zoning at town meeting, zoning approval to make changes or to have, I guess, developments to zone certain kind of housing initiatives. And so instead of having 2/3 vote at town meeting, in certain cases, there'd be just a majority vote would be necessary. And the whole idea behind this is to encourage housing, the building of housing. I know we've gone back and forth, and I was trying to kind of remember situations when I thought something good did not get passed because it didn't quite get 2/3. So I'm not sure how huge an issue it is here, but it also seems to me that, you know, when it comes to something like building housing, that a simple majority at town meeting should suffice. So, you know, I'm inclined to look favorably upon this, but I did want to kind of get the sense of the board and, you know, sense specific recommendations. I'm not sure if you know, I'd asked for the planning board to say something. I don't think we ever got anything back from them. Sheila seemed to be somewhat supportive, but wasn't too, you know, you know, MMA did ask us to basically communicate with our legislators on this, and so I wanted to bring this point to the board. So I'll just open it up for discussion and thoughts on that. Steve?
So you know, it's the change in the threshold for passing a zoning bylaw is just one component of, you know, there's a lot of things to this. You know, I certainly, you know, once I started to read into it, I realized how little I knew about this, because we're not the planning board.
Right.
It's not things that we normally deal with. There's a ton of stuff in here. I don't know, I mean, I certainly wouldn't recommend that we we act tonight to support the MMA's recommendation on that. They're recommending, along with a host of actually real estate industry groups, to support, basically it's House 2420 is the legislation, but there's a ton of stuff in here. Some of it I understand, some of it I don't.
Right.
And that's probably true for most of us, except for Carl, that actively has worked in some of these things. So, you know, I really, you know, for me, I realize this is more informational than anything else at this point. And, you know, I would hope that the planning board is aware of this and it has, you know, done some consideration of how this is going to impact. I understand some of it is going to streamline and standardize some of the zoning umbrellas and make it consistent around the state. That's part of it. Part of it has to do with development fees or impact fees, mitigation fees, and limitations on that. So there's a lot of things in here. I wouldn't be prepared to just, you know, rubber stamp the MMA.
Yeah, and one thing just to keep in mind, whether we, you know, probably if we don't do something tonight, it's good. This is something that, my understanding, the legislative session is ending soon.
Yeah.
So, you know, so part of it is if a majority does feel strongly to endorse it or not, I think that would be the question. But we can also just discuss it and be aware of it. Yes, Yolanda.
So I'm on one of the MMA policy committees, and we were talking about this, and what was interesting was hearing from other communities that people are concerned about changing the two-thirds majority.
The two-thirds, yeah.
You know, the two-thirds and making it a majority, because then it will be easier for certain changes of use to go through.
That's right.
And if it passes at the state level, it would be hard for us to say at a local level, we want to still keep the two-thirds majority. So that's just one of the points. Yeah, I'm with Steve. I don't know that I'm ready, and I've studied a fair amount and been listening. But what I would say is, as we as individuals can sort of absorb this and make a decision to then reach out if we feel comfortable
Jack
enough
and Karen.
to Jack and Karen to either support or not support what's being presented, because there are two organizations. MMA, I believe, is supporting one thing. MAPC is looking at a slightly different version.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you're right, there's a House version, there's a Senate version, and then there's the governor's version as well, so.
I think the House is the closest to the governor's.
To the governor's,
Yeah.
and the Senate's a
Which is
little.
why
right.
MMA is supporting that one.
Yeah,
because
they'd
they support the
they'd
governor's.
ask our endorsement.
Right.
Carl?
To the points that have already been made, I agree with what Yolanda just said. There are,
At least three.
I might say this tactfully, but usually when the legislature gets involved in land use decisions in Massachusetts, the towns pay the price. That's how it's been historically. 40B, for instance. 40B may have had good intentions, but from my perspective, those intentions weren't borne out. I mean, the results weren't borne out of the original intention, and it's been very onerous to many of the communities. And so I've read through the stuff. I find some of it beneficial, some of it not so beneficial. And so I feel uncomfortable having a blanket vote in support of any of it, to tell you the truth, because in my past experience, that is when the legislature gets involved in land use decisions in Massachusetts, the towns pay a price somewhere along the line.
Well, in all likelihood, though, some version of this
Yeah.
will be passing at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think that's
So
the concern.
we need to be aware of it, certainly, and I would hope, again, the town planner and the planning board are aware of
And I
this.
agree with you,
Right.
Steve, and I hope that they've been made aware of this, and if
Well-
they haven't, we should provide this
Well, I've
information to them.
certainly-
Well,
I
it
mean,
may
I
pass,
imagine.
but it may not pass too. I mean, there have been a lot of these
Yeah,
types of
true, it may
things
not
that have just
There's
died
a
at
number
the
of
deadline.
organizations, though, that are pushing for this to pass. They've looked at housing, regulation for a number of sessions, and they are looking to get something
Yeah, I
passed
think
in
there's
this.
critical
There's
mass here.
critical mass behind this.
So I guess that would be my concern, that if we take no action, we decide that, you know,
Well-
we're not gonna get involved, then we could end up with something we really don't like.
Well,
you
that's
know,
why I
but-
recommend each of us individually, because we're
Yeah.
not comfortable taking a mass vote right now, take the time and make sure we get our information and our voice to our legislature.
To Jack and to Karen.
Yeah, Jack and
That's-
Karen, and if
that
there's other
sounds like-
organizations that you, you know.
Right.
That sounds like the rest of the board pretty much agrees with that. Okay. Certainly. You wanna come up, John?
John Featherston, 98 Heritage Avenue. As the governor's appointee to affordable housing in Ashland, and also the governor's appointee to MAPC, I struggle, because I agree with what Carl said, if you let the legislature get involved with land use, it doesn't often work out. But I have to, you know, and I really came to talk about opiate tonight, but this is another important issue. I have to tell you guys as local elected officials, and Tara Ward will back this up, I get multiple, and I'm double-digit phone calls every month with people begging me to get them into the housing authority, and we don't have stock. And when I tell you they're begging me, I mean, it's, talk about ruining a good day, and you get, you know, a desperate phone call. At the end of the day, people like, I have no place to go, you have to help me.
Sure.
And I can't help them. And Ashland has a huge problem with it. And I agree with you, I don't think you guys should blanket this, but I would ask that you make it a huge priority. And, you know, maybe because I'm associated with MAPC, the MAPC version kind of makes a lot of sense to me. But I don't think that we can wait any longer. I mean, if we could build 100 affordable units tomorrow in Ashland, we would fill them, you know, in that amount of time. So
Okay.
I would beg you guys to make this a priority.
Well, and certainly we're concerned about that. I think the question before us now is if this is something we should weigh in on and with our legislators. And it sounds like we're not willing to do that collectively tonight, so.
Well, I think to John's point, to John's specific point there, I think we're all in agreement
Yeah.
on that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
We need
it's
more
bad out there, and it's getting more. In the few years that I've been the governor's appointee, it's getting, the demand is much more, because it speaks to the opioid issue, it speaks to the hoarding issue. it
So, for
speaks to
example, I think
mental health.
Jack Lewis is gonna be making a vote on this. Do any of us know how he's voting? I mean, I asked him, his opinion on this, but really,
No,
yeah.
yeah.
He doesn't, so, I mean,
I don't think
maybe
he's
our
fully informed
legislators,
at this
right,
point.
yeah,
That's
could
problem.
use some guidance, and so it may be incumbent on us to,
Right.
you know, do that.
So, to go to the affordable housing question now, there's different variations of
Right.
affordable housing. So, we talking workforce housing, or what I'm seeing more of is a need for subsidized housing?
Correct. Well, I mean, you bring up a great point, Stephen. Thanks for bringing it up. And I think everybody has their own definition of what affordable housing is. Some people have a negative connotation to it. Other people have, you know, is it housing for a police officer, a school teacher, or whatever? So there is a lot of different misconceptions of it. You know, is it, you know, Section 8 housing, which is not what we're talking about, and I don't think that's what the governor is talking about either. But
Do need Section 8 as well.
blanket, if it's affordable housing for senior citizens or disabled people, we have a need for it in the community. If it's for school teachers and police officers and people who work at the post office, we have a need for it all. I mean, Ashland's grown great. I mean, we've had phenomenal growth, and, you know, kudos to the board for, you know, directing the town in that. But we do need special attention to affordable housing for every facet of the community, I think.
And we're having a hard time keeping the units that we have that are affordable, especially with American Boulevard and stuff. I mean, we have to keep a close tab on what's going on.
Should.
No different than some of the issues that are going on Galani Way, Rick Galani area, that, you know, that's all affordable housing. And people have been living there under the affordable housing unit, and we're finding 2 or 3 people that no longer live there, but they're subletting.
Subletting it, yep.
And they violated their
Go get
contract
'em,
immediately.
yeah.
And so as soon as we found out, but again, it takes
Time.
takes time and
And
a
energy and
process for
money.
that that's right. So that's what, you know, so that's what we're trying to do, and it takes up a lot of time in doing the things that we want to do for the future. We'd have to deal with the things that are directed, that are at front of us right now.
We talked about that at the general meeting,
Right.
at the regional
Tree?
meeting, when we
Oh,
talked
yeah.
about, and it's one of the inherent flaws in 40B
Right.
is that keeping track of that inventory.
It is difficult, not
Michael,
easy.
is it?
Yes.
I just, I'll chime in here. I think, whether you're looking at it as a board or as you're looking at it individually, I think kind of meshing all the points that we talk about here, we consistently talk about the need for more housing and more affordable housing, but yet whenever we put forward projects, it receives such a level of pushback that it gives everyone pause as to whether or not it's really the right thing for the town. And I think that's predominantly because, not necessarily of a NIMBY attitude, but just I think some of these projects are not proposed in the best places, or the best places for all of Ashland. So to the extent that any of these allow us the opportunity to better plan that way and to better place some of these projects in areas that make more sense for the whole town, I think I would, my recommendation would be supportive of it.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into our next item. All right.
Good.
John,
Can I
anything else?
just make one more
Yes.
closing comment? I commend you guys for thinking about the class action lawsuit. And you talked about the due diligence, and Mr. Herbert, I have all that information. I'm willing to give
Okay.
it to you, share it with you, put you in contact with the resources that I have to get it done. Kudos to you. And if it becomes a drain on the town, you know how to get in touch with me. I'll give
Right,
you the
and I guess,
information.
now that you mention it, the Board of Health should make a recommendation, I would think. Or think about that.
I appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think the Board of Health should make that, yes. And,
Okay.
through a lot of my philanthropic work, I've dedicated a lot of resources to fighting the opioid addiction. And once again, not to drop the governor, but, I sit on the governor's workman's compensation opiate task force as well, too. It might be a good job for me to invite the judge to one of your meetings, and you could understand, when you're talking about a lawsuit against the opioid crisis, and we talk about it a lot at the Board of Health, the death get the headlines, but the real damage of the opioid crisis is the day-to-day damage that it's done, and I'm sure even Chief Roby can speak to it. It's the damage that's done in the lack of productivity of people getting back to work. It's the lack of productivity that they are when they're working because they're addicted to something. It's the stress and strain on the families and the communities. Like I said, the headlines are the deaths, but the impacts are much greater than the deaths. So I give you kudos for doing that.
All right, thanks, John.
And if anything I can do to help, so
All right.
Thanks,
I'll
John.
bring it back
Thank
to
you.
my board as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the next one. So, we'll just take it that take it under advisement and people act as individuals as they see fit on this, housing question, zoning question. Okay, Michael, so, we had talked in the past about, we have, these town-owned properties. We've been very active in gaining control of parcels, and so now we talk about the kind of follow-up and planning process about how to deal with that. And so that's, again, something we put on the agenda just to follow up. And we had, if you recall, the last meeting, of course, we had some proposals for some of the parcels. So we've decided, we keep in mind that we should be pursuing our own planning process. And we talked in the past about a public forum in the fall to shed light on this. So with that, I just asked Michael to kind of prepare some thoughts on that, and maybe we could have a discussion for the board. So, Michael, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to.
Well, I think, I think, as you know, we have acquired a pretty good portfolio of properties, which I see as a good thing because it gives us an opportunity to plan for the future. And I think we will have the opportunity shortly to talk about maybe additional properties which might factor into some of those plans in the future. I think I try to think about things in terms of themes and in terms of goals. It's just, I guess, from my performance management background. But I really hear a community-wide, and especially, as it's articulated through the board, a desire to increase economic development in town, a desire to retain and potentially increase open space and recreational opportunities in town, wanting to preserve a lot of the historical aspects of the town when possible, and then also look at increasing our affordable housing stock. So I think you know, what I can do to start this process off is to go ahead and basically put some thoughts together on each of the properties that we own, distribute that to you, let you refine it a bit, and I think you go into your forum in the fall, your public forum, kind of I don't want to say with something set in stone, but something to help guide the discussion. This is what we're thinking about doing with this property. This is what we're thinking about doing with this property. We've kind of talked about it piecemeal. We've kind of talked about what do we want to do with the Valentine estate. We heard a presentation from CPC and a recommendation. You know, and we have the two properties from Northeastern or Framingham State. But how do they all fit in together? And I think if you look at that and have that discussion as a board and with the community, what that does is that fits into the whole strategic planning process, because that's really going to be like the bulk of any future planning. So that's just my recommendation for the future, is that I put that together for you, and you have that as a guidepost for the discussion.
So I like that recommendation about getting a list of the spaces that we have. Some of the things that I'd like to see as part of that is how we purchase the property, and based on how we purchased it, what we are allowed to do with that property. Because I think that will help give us some definition of, you know, if something was purchased and it can only be open space, well, then it's not worth having a discussion about, you know, something that's
Utilizing
not
it for-
passive
right.
recreation. Right, so, but yeah, I think that's a good step. And then I would also recommend that before we have a public forum, we have a board discussion, maybe not just in public, but a retreat to really talk through some of these things, so we have a better understanding of how we're gonna present it
So you
to the
suggest a
public.
retreat for more intensive work?
Yeah.
Other thoughts, Carl?
Yeah, I agree with that, because if we just go right into a public forum and we have 5 or 6 different properties, the chances of getting anything really of substance accomplished is pretty slim.
And just to add on to that, I can only speak from the experience that we had with the Affordable Housing Trust, is that we had put out several RFPs out there, and they've come back and they've been just so outrageous that it wasn't going to be beneficial to the town. And someone made a comment earlier this evening that, you know, the economy is booming right now, so people have jobs, they're working, and you know, they're not scratching to survive. When the economy starts slowing down a little bit, that's when you start seeing these people, when the RFPs come out, you know, they're making sound and legitimate.
I mean, the
you know,
housing development.
Oh, the housing development, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were outrageous. I mean, there was no way that we were gonna spend that amount of money on affordable housing, because it wouldn't have been affordable anymore.
Right. Would have
So,
been
you
too
have to,
expensive
right.
for the town.
That's it, exactly.
So, yeah, so, you know, part of the thing I'm trying to figure out is the process we want to engage in. So, you know, we had a comprehensive plan committee a couple years ago, and then Michael had his strategic, which some of us were involved in, and try to use that. So my question is, who's actually gonna follow through with this? Is it gonna be us working with Mike and his staff? Is that how people are seeing it? So as part of the planning process, is something that really we'd be the kind of the people really working on it, or is there another committee or something else that should get involved or not? Or is it really just you know, I think to go to Yolanda's, us having a retreat and then posting these forms, and then from that following up with certain specific actions? Is that the kind of process that we're looking at?
Well, I think what we could do is, so I mean, the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, we got through, you know, putting together the values and the vision and basically the goals and policy areas.
Yeah.
And we collected through a lot of public input, just kind of some of the action items and objectives. You know, there are different levels when you start talking about strategic planning, from very abstract to very specific. And we started putting that together. And the next step was going to be to put together a draft of that, and then have the Strategic Planning Committee, who's put in a lot of work, and I'd like to honor their work.
Yeah.
In starting to refine that. But along the way, what happened is we started having opportunities to purchase properties that we were actually talking about, you know, what could be the future use of them. And so that took up the bulk of the time, and I think that was the right decision. So I think, you know, you can have a discussion about these properties. Again, they're gonna touch all of these points that we talk about, and I think the board, you know, can work with me, or the board, you know, leads that discussion on those properties. And I think what we can do as the Strategic Planning Advisory Group is to take that discussion and take those concepts for those properties and basically drop it into the strategic plan, and that helps fill in some gaps. So when we're talking about housing, you know, and we're talking about housing in the right place, we talk about, you know, there's using a couple of the properties that we have and some of the proposals that's come from the process that you're talking about. So I think it'd be good.
I would also think that as we start looking at this, we have a housing production plan that we might want to tie into the strategic plan that has, you know, there's different things. There's the open space and recreation plan that's almost done. So as these things become available, I think that will be part of our discussion, and it might be bringing in these other committees to say, okay, give us your feedback, and how can we then create a package based on the feedback of all the committees, as well as some, and then bring that to the public. Because I think, to Carl's point, if you go, okay, here's all our space, tell us what you think, nothing will be, you know, it's sort of, you sort of have to guide the discussion to some extent based on the feedback that we already have from the strategic plan, from the open space plan, and from the affordable housing plan that we have.
So Michael, do you think those are the kind of tools that you can kind of put together? Like, Yolanda, I remember now, so we're really waiting for the open space plan, and that would be good to, do they need any more hearings or anything? They just need to do it?
I don't think they do. I think they just need to, you know, put a bow on it. We got the housing production plan.
Right, that's done.
We, you know, and those, you know, those have all kind of factored into some of the comprehensive plan discussions and strategic plan discussions.
So I'm just trying to make sure we have kind of a vehicle that's going to be manageable. Like, say we do this retreat and we're going to have certain information there, and how's that?
Right.
Would you be able to give us a list by our next meeting with the
Yeah, I
different
think-
information?
Yeah, maybe.
Start there.
And I would
Sooner than you
also,
think.
you know, to
So I know.
piggyback on what Yolanda had said earlier in terms of additional information, those properties that have a unique condition, such as a restriction that needs to be applied to it. Because I think there's a number of them in the portfolio that are still open in that regard.
Right.
All right. So does that sound like?
Yeah, sounds like a good-
useful discussion? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. So that's, it's town manager reports.
Yep, and I can be brief because I know we have executive session afterwards. Just want to let you know, if you remember, we received a grant from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development through the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. It was to look at the feasibility of starting a business improvement district in downtown. Beth has met with the liaison from DHCD on that, the person who will be kind of leading the charge from the state agency on that. So we'll be looking at probably a first, you know, public discussion, you know, probably later in the fall. What we're going to do is we're going to identify some downtown businesses that would be, I don't want to say champions, but you know, have some influence in downtown because they have a vested, you know, interest in it, and start using almost like a focus group approach from them to see how things might work, and then move on from there.
So is this our grant, is this our process that we talked about and approved at town meeting, or is this the state? We approved at town meeting the grant process, right, to use town money to support businesses in town or give them loans and stuff.
This is a different grant.
Okay, can we tie the two of them together somehow to get more bang for our buck?
Oh, yeah, so that's one
Okay.
of the things that we could look, I mean, maybe through the business and through a bid. So I kind of assumed that everybody knew what a business improvement district is. And essentially that is a district, you know, that has bounds, and each business contributes to a fund designed to improve that district from a business perspective. One of the things you could do is help supplement some of the business incentive programs that we passed
Right.
at town meeting with some of that funds, or it could use it to ancillary purposes and maybe amplify what we're trying to do. But just want to give you an update.
Yeah, interesting to
Okay.
see what the
Yeah.
response is to that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. They usually are not successful the first time around. So, anyway, moving on. Next item I have is, I think I let everybody know in town hall that unfortunately we're going to be losing Greg Enos, who was our first first and only HR director. Greg was hired to be the town administrator in the town of Avon, which is one of his career goals, something I knew when he came here. And I'm glad we've been able to keep him here for a little over a couple of years. Greg's done a tremendous job kind of putting in place a lot of the things that we talked about for years, like an employee manual, a process, hiring process, things of that nature. So his last day is going to be August 3rd. We've already started advertising for the position. We've received probably about 10 resumes so far, and some good candidates, which I'm pleased to see. And like I said, Greg's last day will be August 3rd. So if you get a chance, make sure you stop by and wish him the
Friday.
best. Yes. And then finally, I just wanted to let everybody know the third downtown forum on our streetscape design is going to be August 22nd. And I think I mentioned at a previous meeting that BSC has come up with a design that actually incorporates both bike lanes and the wider sidewalks. So bike lanes on Front Street, going to a Sharrow on Main Street with wider sidewalks, with the idea of when we redo Pleasant Street, we add a bike lane as well. So you have this a continuous bicycle, path, I guess you could say. It's not technically a path.
Right.
But this will be the final, design
we'll do that.
we're going to reveal. And again, we're looking forward to it. The next process will be the 75 and 100% design. We're currently in the process of looking at putting together a MassWorks application to fund that work as well.
August 22nd, what time and where?
It'll be 7 p.m. and it'll be at the community center.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, that's all I have right now.
thank you. All right, so, board reports? Joe?
Real quick, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like to remind everybody that Ashland Day is sponsoring again the Snack Shack, the family movie night, and summer concerts. The Snack Shack is open from Monday through Friday from 11 to 1. That helps maintain the pavilion over at Stone Park. Maintains the bathrooms. They all volunteers. They keep it clean, so the folks that are using Kid Spot have a nice place to go for the boys and girls that have to use the bathroom and change baby diapers or whatever. It's there and it's available. And family movie night is every Thursday night. They start at 6:30, so that's tomorrow night. I can't give the name of the movie because then we'd have to pay a $500 royalty fee, so just
we
come
go
on
through-
down,
we
you'll
go
see
through that
the
every
sign.
year.
Yeah,
Yep.
you'll see the sign down there, so.
That's fine.
Yeah, you don't want to pay the artist. So
Yeah.
That's okay.
And then the summer concerts
Yeah,
are every
that's-
Tuesday night.
It's a ticklish item.
It is very ticklish, and it's 7 p.m. at the gazebo. In 2 weeks, the Beatle tribute band, Studio 2, will be performing in 2 weeks, so, but I'll keep everything posted on Facebook, and so everybody can come. The last couple of concerts have been really, really good, and the weather has held up for us, so far, so good.
Had some nice nights.
Yeah. So that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Oh,
thank
oh,
you.
just one more thing, I'm sorry. If and when we do have a retreat, I would like to see a task at hand is that revising our town's one-day liquor license after tonight's issues with, multiple dates and multiple days that have been being
Maybe some
utilized.
parameters for Beth
Yeah,
to go by.
I would
yeah.
think that would be beneficial for the town. And especially if we're trying to get this brewery going next door,
Then we'll get till
again.
2020.
2
Well,
years
yeah,
for
2
that.
years for that, right? Yeah, okay. Well, let's hope it's sooner than that, but whatever. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Yolanda.
Just a couple of things. So the dog park committee has a dog park naming contest. It's been whittled down to the top 3, so you can go to the website, and I don't remember offhand, but I'm pretty sure it's ashlanddogpark.com. And you can click a pop-up. You can't do it on your mobile phone. You have to do it on a laptop or a computer. The second thing is on Tuesday, I believe it is July 17th, the Corner Spot Committee discussion. So if you're interested in helping out, in supporting and working and doing things for the Corner Spot, it's pretty much been Beth and her committee that created it. And I know they're looking for more people, and Ashland being the volunteer town that it is, I'm sure there are people who are interested in helping out with that. And then the last thing is, as we voted tonight, the cultural festival that's happening on Saturday the 21st at the Corner Spot. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Steve?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing for all you seniors out there that are watching this evening. The Council on Aging has a opening. It's a 2-year position to be filled, and any individuals that are interested in serving on our Council on Aging should submit a talent bank form to the Board of Selectmen's office. Attention Susan Roby, and they will be invited to the council's August meeting to be interviewed, and then a decision would be made. So.
Great, thanks. And that reminds, do we keep a list of vacancies for open committees? Like if someone's interested, they call you and you can tell them what do we have for open committees, or?
So I'm currently working on creating, and it's not easy, a list, like a fluid list that's
Yeah.
always there. Right now, if you go to the individual pages, I try to keep those pretty accurate, so if someone said, I'm interested in open space, you can click on open space and it'll
you
let
go
you
right
know
to
if
the
there's a
committee.
vacancy.
I see.
So it's been a little problematic because people put in 4 or 5 groups, but all the groups might already be filled. So I would like to eventually
Yeah,
have one
so tell
page
'em
that
what.
they could say looking to volunteer and have them all be
Oh,
listed.
good.
Just a follow-up, so we have our reappointments that are due by the end of August, so are we planning on doing those at our August meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Do you
kind,
have any?
that's kind of my fluid list that I have
Do
going
you
right
have
now.
any people that have said they don't want to be
I have not reached
reappointed?
out to anyone just
Okay.
yet.
Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off.
And
No,
so-
that's a problem.
So
Not
for
a problem.
example, Beth, she
Her
left
seat
it
will
open
be
in about a
available.
dozen committees, I think.
So she has 3
Yeah.
that we received the resignations for. I'm not sure
We don't
that they're
appoint all of
all,
them.
I think only one of them, right? You appoint, either one or 2 of them.
Open space.
But they're all August 1st. Your reappointments will be August 31st.
Right.
So we'll just fill those probably at that time.
So speaking to that, there's also an opening for Open Space and Recreation Committee
Correct.
as of this evening. So-
Beth's,
As of
First,
Right.
August 1st.
August 1st.
August
As
1st.
of August 1st, okay.
And do we know if the period of time, is it that
How much is left?
slot is 2 years, 1 year?
I don't know that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have that off the top of my
And
head.
we're also recruiting for the Public Safety Committee, right? 3 at-large members.
2.
So, 2. Why did I think 3? Oh, never mind. So
We've
there's
gotten
2.
one already, right? And
We've
you-
had a couple
Oh, okay.
people
Couple
express
people
interest
interested,
in
yeah, but, so, okay. I'm sorry, are
All
you
set.
done? Okay,
All set.
thanks.
Thank you.
I just had 2. One, I know Yolanda and Steve still need to meet with the Upper Charles Trail. I don't want to put them off too long, so I'd like to try to schedule in the near future the big meeting with the, understanding you guys will do your work. Like, so I don't know if you want to try to schedule it now, but I'd like to try to do something like, say, within 4 or 5 weeks to schedule a big meeting between the 2 committees as a follow-up to the work you guys done. So I guess I'll send out some dates and we can all try to, I'm presuming we want a special purpose meeting not incorporate into a selectmen's meeting. Is that pretty much everybody's thinking on that?
I think so.
Okay. All right, so we'll try to get that date scheduled, and meanwhile, you guys
Yep.
continue forward. Okay.
I've done it before. Call them.
The only other thing I wanted to suggest.
I think you and I need to. Sorry.
No, that's all right. The only other thing I wanted to suggest, see if people are interested, Steve and Mike and I and Jen and Sue, during the weeks off, we have these agenda discussions, as you all know. So I don't know if, and Mike has some tools that he uses that we look at things, and You know, I'm just kind of thinking, and then we get feedback from people. Sometimes the other members don't, of course, know until the agenda comes out what's going on and stuff. But, you know, I'm just wondering if people think, and I suggested this some time ago, that we should have on every meeting an agenda item to discuss the agenda, our upcoming items, or people's thoughts for upcoming items. So I'm just kind of throwing that out as a thought for members. If you want to have somewhere on the agenda where every meeting okay, this is what's coming up, this is what we're thinking about, this is what I would suggest. Maybe Mike does a quick update in his list of these things coming. I don't know, what are people's thoughts on that?
I think maybe if people have things for the agenda that we want, that they could put it in their board reports.
And/or email the chair
Or
and the
email,
town
which is
manager,
what I
which
did
is
the
what
other-
we've done before.
Right, no, but I'm thinking of more of a collective discussion, and also you guys sharing that kind of, like, we see, Mike has a list with 2 or 3 meetings down the road of items he sees coming up. So I don't know if you guys wanted to kind of see that and look at that, or, you know, it's just a thought. We deal with these things and then come up with stuff.
If there's a list that's already made for future agenda meetings, maybe that's something that we could take a look at. Just email it to us.
Just shoot it out to us. so
Shoot
we
it
can
out to
take a
us.
look.
Why not?
Well, I just want to make sure that it doesn't violate open meeting law.
Mm.
And if it doesn't, I think the best thing to do would just be to share it with everybody.
As
you
long
know,
as
so
we're not
that
replying.
dynamic.
We're not replying it, you
Well,
just pass it on to us.
yeah, it's,
Well,
I
let's-
wish it was that simple.
I
I
would
know.
say, let's double check with Lisa. Can you send out a list of potential potential items for upcoming meetings?
And it's just kind of an advisory,
Right.
is the way I'm reading. So you guys would kind of at least, you know, kind of be
Stay in the
current on
loop
that stuff.
To some
Yeah.
respect, yeah.
And so, all right, so the sense I'm getting is you don't feel there's a need every meeting to review agenda okay, but maybe we'll look at some way of communicating some of that stuff. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, I just have one quick item, and it really goes to what you're talking about here, is if we do have a retreat, this board actually has been together now for quite some time, for maybe 3 years, I think
4 years.
we've all been together.
4 years.
Three.
And one of the first things that we did was put together our own vision and, can I? Mission and vision statement that we used to review periodically, but we haven't done it for a while. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to go through that and to see maybe where some of these, if we do it before the fall meeting, where some of these projects fall into that.
Yes, yeah.
Where we've been successful, where we need some improvement. It wouldn't have to be too long of a discussion, but it would be nice to know where we are
Right,
with
I
that
see that as
document,
part of-
because
yeah.
I think we worked hard on that
Right,
document.
and I see that, now that you bring it up, I see that as part of this planning discussion. If we're gonna have some kind of retreat, that would be part of it, is that what you're suggesting,
Yeah,
basically?
that it be
So
one of the
that's a-
items on
yeah.
the.
So that's probably a good thing to start with and work it into it, right? That's, okay.
Okay, that's all I have, thanks.
All right, thanks, Carl. Okay, so we have executive session scheduled, and we do not intend to return from executive session. Michael, do you just want to confirm the reasons to go into executive session? Is it labor negotiations specifically,
Well,
or is it?
It's not labor negotiations, it is, it's the purposes for discussion of labor issues.
Labor issues, okay, good, that's good, thanks for the clarification. Okay, so pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss labor issues, and also under the same, under 21A6, to consider the purchase and value of real estate property. So do I have a motion to enter into executive session for those reasons?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye, Magnani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Chair, aye. Okay, so we're now in executive session.
So we should.
You want to adjourn downstairs?